episode of Video Game Logic. Today's show was recorded on February the 5th, 2019. I'm your host, Gaming Psychologist, and with me, as always, someone who doesn't feel very vampiric.
Caffeine Rage.
On today's show, we will of course be discussing the games that we played. We're going to be talking about our slightly late January Game Club, which was Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. We'll be revealing our next Game Club game for February. EA turns in a bummer fiscal report. Quote, "We're disappointed in our underperformance," end quote. Fallout 76 fans are in full revolt following Bethesda's latest patch. Ubisoft is sorry for offensive Division 2 marketing email flaunting a real government shutdown. And we will be having a weekly discovery queue. Timestamps will be in the show notes following their respective topics. Hello, Rage.
Hello.
How are you today?
A lot better now that I could uninstall Vampire the Masquerade.
Spoilers for the Game Club, although, I mean, my opening was also spoilery. And several of the people in the community know how you felt. So I guess this is really only a surprise to people who don't participate much on Discord.
Or have never heard me talk about a Game Club because, you know, my views of things.
True. Or also someone who's completely brand new to the show and has been drawn to this episode potentially because they are a fan of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines.
If so, well, I'm not sorry.
It's okay. This is one of the game clubs where one of only two game clubs where our views are pretty much the opposite. So major spoilers for, like, I don't know, 45 or 50 minutes from now when we get to it. Also, just in case somebody notices, which I think you will, but I don't know. I always hear people talk about, I apologize for the audio quality in the podcast this week. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I can't hear what you're talking about. But my normal mic, my regular recording mic, there's something wrong with the cable. It uses a USB cable, and it's, I don't know, dying or gone bad or something. And it was producing this odd ticking, staticky sound. So I have swapped back to my old recording mic, which I kept just in case I ever needed it. And I needed it, but it is a lower quality mic, so I do apologize for any quality issues you hear from me this week. I will do my best in post to take care of it, but I mean the quality difference, at least in my ears, is night and day between the two mics. So just because I've gotten so used to hearing my voice with the other one, when I was doing testing, I was like, oh. But this is definitely better than the mic I was using for game night last night, so.
You're not trying to send a Morse code message in your audio?
No, and also the headset mic I swapped over to, because I couldn't find this mic last night. I found it today. It was where I thought it was, in the storage box. And
I was about to say, wait, you found it?
Yeah, it was in a storage box in my wife's office, but I didn't want to go in there last night and dig around for it, because if I accidentally woke up my wife or my kid, there would be hell to pay. So I just was like, I'll leave it. I found a headset mic. It'll be good enough. We'll figure it out. So yay, adventures with AV equipment. Granted, I don't have a fancy setup or anything.
Well,
Just
considering you have
is...
a microphone that has a USB plug, I think it's rather apparent.
You have to admit, though, for what that mic is, it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But see, that's the thing.
I mean, I can't
don't
really
want...
say much on that because my microphone also is USB, but it's decent enough.
Yeah.
At least for this work.
If I was doing some sort of professionally produced something, I would go, with everything. Get a soundboard and a DAC and,
If you're doing a professionally voice acting, I would question the director.
This year I intend to do some test recordings for audiobooks. I'd love to actually narrate things. I can really get into that. I don't have like a huge vocal range, but I've got several different voices that I can do.
And you pick this
and things
one.
like that. Well, this is my normal voice, and I'm lazy when it comes to doing things for the show, so I'm not going to do any of my other voices. Only the best for you guys, right?
Oh, yeah.
But that's something I'd like to do this year. But I'm not I don't intend to upgrade my setup for that. I think my current one is good enough. If they tell me it's not, then, so be it. I'll get some soundproofing and an even higher quality mic. But, yeah. I did a lot of research before I picked that one up. Looking for, a good,
well, you could always
but less expensive.
If you wish to get some practice in without, getting paid for it, you can always go to Project Gutenberg.
Yeah. Didn't even think of that. I could do that, though. Thanks. Make a note of that. But my grandmother-in-law, so Katie's grandmother, did it for a while. She recorded audiobooks. And, she has a sweet grandma voice. So she did, a lot of children's books and stuff. But I was like, if she can do it, surely I can do it. So, just a little thing I want to try and do this year. But, anyways, there were a couple of good segue opportunities several minutes ago, but now that we've ventured into audiobook territory, Rach, why don't you tell me about the games you played this week?
Well, you didn't plan a good segue?
Nah.
Well, I guess it just didn't click then.
See, I see what you're doing there, because I know what your game is, but I'm choosing to ignore it. This one didn't, fly past me.
Unlike many of my comments and references.
Well, you reference things that I'm not familiar with.
Damn kid. So, the first game that I played was Spaceplan. A auto/clicker with a story, which is weird to begin with. And they say that Spaceplan on the store page is an experimental piece of interaction based on partly on a total misunderstanding of Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time.
Yep.
Which, okay, I can see that. I never actually read the entire thing. I actually own a copy of it. It's just I never read all of it. But, this is such a weird game. All centered around potatoes for some reason. I guess someone really enjoyed potatoes from Portal 2, huh?
Yep.
So you wake up in a spaceship. And the only thing there is the AI that's been severely damaged. And the only thing that it knows how to do is everything based around potatoes. Because, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you eventually get to Earth, and you found that all life has been wiped out. So the AI decides the best course of action on this, based on a misunderstanding of A Brief History of Time, is to go to the end of the universe via time travel to the point that a big crunch happens, and essentially the universe reboots itself. Think like Futurama. One of their time travel episodes where they go through the entire timeline and come back and the universe resets, only the entire universe is 2 feet lower.
Wasn't that the finale?
I'm not sure if it was the finale. I know they've done time travel several times.
Yeah, I've not seen all of Futurama. I've seen a bunch of it.
But this was one of the older episodes, so it's not the finale.
Okay.
They may revisit it because, Futurama also loves self-referential humor.
Well, who doesn't?
And of course, this is going to be edited out, the long pause that I'm just leaving there awkwardly for you, but still.
Yep, obviously. Anyways.
So, Spaceplan, the AI decides, let's, I read this book one time, and I'm pretty sure I got the gist of it, so let's just throw everything into the sun, create a black hole, and time travel with it. And it works. They time travel, but they end up in an alternate dimension where the Earth is inhabited with potatoes. Sentient potatoes. And then things get weird very quickly. But the fact that it's a clicker game that, well, to pardon the term or phrase, clicked with me is weird to begin with because I typically don't like these games. I typically hate them, actually. Actively hate them.
Yep.
To be fair, I also
So,
cheated like hell on this because I rigged my mouse to do 100 clicks a second.
well, that's okay.
But honestly, that
Yeah,
wasn't even really required. That just cut down my playtime to just under the 2-hour mark.
didn't I get this game for you? Because
Yeah,
I
I think
played
so.
it in late 2017, talked about it on the show, and there was a lot of stuff I purposely didn't talk about because I was like, look, this is a clicker game.
Well, I stopped on the big twist, because there's a bunch of stuff after that. And you alluded that there was a big twist.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to what I thought was the end of the game. I was like, oh, okay, where's the big twist? Jared was saying that it changes, and then the cutscene happens. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so there it is.
And then the shift in gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's still a clicker, but it changes a few things up.
Yeah, it took almost a shooter.
Yeah, sort of.
It just it makes me wish it was longer. But then again, I also cheated like hell, so I probably knocked a good hour of gameplay off of it, or I should say, sitting around waiting because towards the end of the first half, I was pretty much just sitting here holding down the macro button, watching a movie, because it had some definite padding on it, because it's a clicker game, right?
Yeah. So then, we'll kind of talk around it. We won't spoil it, but what did you think of the very ending of the game?
It definitely, there's a couple of illusions that you could draw from it. And I can't say, exactly what. But, you could draw a couple conclusions from it. And I like that they left it kind of open to interpretation.
Right. So, actually, why don't we do this? I do want to talk about this for a minute and just pick your brain and see what you think. At this point, listener, I'm going to cut out whatever it is that we talk about for spoilsies, and put it after the outro song. So if you've played the game, or if you just don't care and you want to hear about it, you can hear our spoiler discussion there. And we'll cut back in a minute to either when we're being non-spoilery or when we move on to the next game. So I'll drop back out of spoilers now. Just because before we move on to a different game, I do want to say, like, I do get into a lot of weird, silly, ridiculous games, but every once in a while, when you dive into stuff like that, you find something like this that is really interesting and different and, dare I say, unique. And I wholeheartely recommend it to anybody. And the fact that you're someone who doesn't like this type of game is going, actually, it was quite good. Just, to summarize, like, I did good. I feel like I did good on this one. I've got a real big smile on my face.
Yeah, congratulations. You're the broken clock this week.
That's fine. I can live with that. I'll be back to all my weird bullshit anime whatever games next week. And many weeks to come.
Yeah, but it was actually the fact that I enjoyed it, I think, is the biggest testimonial possible.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to rip apart that game a little bit later.
Yep. You're a very harsh critic sometimes.
Speaking
You're a
of
cruel mistress.
Speaking of harsh critics, how about your streaming quality?
Yeah, that was not my fault. Aside from the audio problems, which I've already talked about, everything on my end was saying that there were no problems. So unless OBS and Mixer were lying to me about what my upload was, that was not my fault.
So we had our first community game in quite a while, and did the Jackbox Party Pack. And this was the second time I played it, because the first time was with Ghost Shark.
Yeah, I think it was Friday, wasn't it?
Yeah. And we did, you don't know, Jack, the actual quiz portion, and Last Water, which is essentially a true-false for various statements.
Mm-hmm.
And
so it's more trivia,
mm-hmm.
but it's just simple true-false.
Yeah, but honestly, since it's true-false, you could coin flip a lot of it.
Yeah. And then we also played Fibbage. We did that Friday night as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is, a statement is made with a blank in it, and you get to fill in the blank. And the idea is to create the best lie that people will believe is the correct answer. And you get more points the more people choose your lie over the other lies or the actual correct answer, which shows up.
Yeah, and this is a party game, so in order to be able to play it, well, don't you have a phone?
Do you not have phones? So only one person actually has to have the game and run it, and you can either stream it or play it, locally or whatever, and you just connect on your smartphone or tablet to essentially the
server, the
server,
the dedicated server, because it all links into Jackbox TV's servers, and there's a 4-digit or 4-letter code that you have to enter to be able to log into the server. And for the first time around, it worked flawlessly. But there was just something going on where all the animations were sluggish. Or if it wasn't you, it was the stream itself dropping frames. At one point, I was dropping more frames than I was getting. To the point that I actually went and did a network test to see, is it me?
Yeah, everyone was... I think it was either Mixer or, depending on which sort of server you were connecting to via Mixer, which I guess would be their fault too, because everyone was connecting through different
districts,
Mixer server, or different districts, because Cube was not having very many problems. I mean, he was noticing some dropped frames, but he was saying it was all right. You were having some problems, and Jim's was a disaster, and Jim is all the way in California. So,
yeah,
Ghost didn't say he was going. He was in silent running because he had his kids last night, so he was just playing and sitting in Discord.
Sitting there brooding.
Chat. Yeah, to type in text chat.
Yeah, at one point after one game, I lost 4,000, 5,000 frames.
Yeah.
Which were you running in 30 or 60 FPS?
So I was running in 60. I was streaming in 60, and then later I changed it to 30 to see if that would help.
Well, still, that dropping that many frames is over a minute and a third. Of just drop frames. I mean, that's absurd, right?
Yeah, that's really bad. Now, there weren't dropped... I think it had to do... Because Mixer has got a low latency mode.
Yeah.
I forget what they call it. But it's only around a second of stream delay. Which makes, Jackbox pretty playable because,
Yeah, it's technically playable in Twitch, but it's not nearly as so as Mixer. But, yeah, going to low latency mode, that's when I was dropping frames like crazy. If I left low latency mode, it was fine.
Yeah. So...
But unfortunately, it introduces so much, delay that it's unplayable.
Yeah, it's between 7 and 10 seconds of delay, which is more time, for most of the game modes than you have to really participate. In fact, it might be all of the game modes. I think Fibbage is the only one that has a long period of time. Whenever you're trying to come up with your lie, it gives you 15 seconds or so.
Yeah. So. Overall, though, on Jackbox, I'll say that it's fun for the first few times, but damn, does that have a short shelf life on it?
Yeah.
I was surprised at how short it was because, at least on Fibbage and Lost Water, you have different categories, or the questions come up at pretty regular intervals from different categories. And on just 2 different play sessions, each one, 4 or 5 rounds, we were seeing a lot of repeat questions and a lot of repeat categories, which doesn't tell me that there's a lot of a pool there.
And it doesn't seem like they have different questions for the different categories, at least in Fibbage.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Licewater,
no,
but
Licewater
Fibbage definitely
has seeing some repeats as well.
Yeah, but Fibbage, whatever the category is just tied to one single question.
Which is ridiculous.
For You Don't Know Jack, I mean, we only played that Friday night.
Yeah, but that has different episodes.
Yeah.
But that's essentially the main mode,
Yeah. What are the ones we didn't play? Drawful, and there was one other one. There's 5 total. I can't remember what it is. But there were 2 modes we haven't played at all. So there's still some replay value to it. And for You Don't Know Jack, I don't know how many
episodes
how large how many there are.
Yeah.
But honestly, You Don't Know Jack was the least fun. I mean, it's not bad, but Lie Swatter is really fast, and you get a lot of really silly
as long
things.
As you're
the
not
joke we
streaming
kept making. Haha.
Your animations were just so sluggish. I don't know.
But I don't know what that was, because on the locally it wasn't doing that, and on the capture for upload it wasn't doing that either. It was only when you watched it on the stream it had that stutter. So, but anyways, Fly Swatter goes by pretty quick, and there's a lot of things that basically the joke is, God, I hope that's true. Like something so ridiculous or stupid or silly. And then, because of fibbage, the players make up the lies. You get a huge variety of answers, at least.
Yeah, but the problem is that the questions repeat, so you start to lose the ability to really be able to pull off a lie.
Yeah. But, that has got, I think, that made it a little more fun, at least until we got through most, if not all, of the questions. So.
Yeah, which is disappointing that the pool is that short,
Yeah, well, there's, 5 of these at this point? Like 5 different...
True.
Jackbox party pack iterations or whatever. I mean, I guess the goal is to get you to get more of them so you can swap between them and have more content. I mean, the main reason that we have this is because it was given away for free on the Epic Store, which you don't have it because you don't actually have to have the game to connect and play. But myself and Ghost Shark and
I specifically am refusing to get it.
Yeah, and that's fine. But that's the only reason that we even have it is because it was free. So I don't know. I'd probably pay a few bucks for it. $4 or $5 as just like a quick thing to have for when family or friends or whatever are over. The questions don't get too bad. I mean, they get a little bit raunchy and there's some swearing and stuff, but unless you have a mom like my mom, when it comes to that kind of stuff, it's not really too big of a deal. Like, I wouldn't be ashamed or embarrassed or worried about showing it to my in-laws or any of my friends or anything.
Yeah, the party pack is a lot more expensive than I would have paid for it.
How much is it?
It's normally $25.
Oh.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a good $5 in.
I mean, even on sale right now, since we have the lunar sale on Steam, it's $12.
I could be convinced to go 10 because really only one person has to have it.
True.
But there's just not that much replay value, it seems. Maybe the later versions have got more more content or increased replayability. But
wow, the 5th version is $30. Damn, right?
Yeah. Trying to see if it says how many modes there are. Invent something. Oh, that's the picture. I don't know. Whatever.
It looks like
I'm not gonna spend too much time on it.
People saying that it crashes like crazy.
Sweet. When I say sweet, I mean not sweet.
It does make me wonder if there's a market here for more streamer-focused multiplayer games. As in, the streamer's the only one that has to have it.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that, well, for one, you're banking on, getting a big streamer to show up with it because, unless you're paying them, there's not always the promise of that happening. Also, you're banking on keeping your servers alive because, Jackbox has to host the servers. At least for, this.
Yeah.
And also, you're in danger of flooding the market if, too many do this because, there's only so many streamers or there's so many big enough that it would warrant a game like Lost Water that could have up to 100 people. you get into the battle royale problem.
Yeah.
Where it's not as interesting because you get one guy in there that knows all the questions.
Yeah, that happened to us. We got a random person who was watching the stream and joined in on Licewater, and he knew all of the answers. I assume just because he had played it a lot. He said in Discord he was just smart, but...
Smart ass, maybe.
Oh. Yeah, I was like, he got into a little bit of an argument with Jim. And I was like, fight, 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 kiss. I don't know. He hasn't shown back up on Discord today unless he's logged in right now.
Oh, is that who I kicked?
Oh, shit.
I didn't do that.
I meant to click... No, that was me. I clicked the general voice chat instead of the general...
No, he's still there.
Text. Yeah, it's Fender something. Formedros? Formedros? I don't know how to say that. That's his name.
It's that one guy. Oh, wait, that's a different one.
He chatted with me for a couple of minutes back and forth, just in general chat about streaming on Mixer and a little bit about a couple of operating systems, and then I went to bed, so... But yeah, at this stage, I don't have any problems with him, really.
It's more picking,
Yeah.
And also picking on you for, I don't know what you broke.
I broke the internet, apparently. That's fine.
Because, that was just ridiculous. Anybody that wants to go back and just look at just how sluggish that was, just take a look at the end credits, and I think that says it all, right?
Yeah. It was just like, tick, 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 tick. Hey, was it you who said the thing about the
GIF?
15 versus 30 versus 60 FPS?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it was real bad.
Yeah, it looked like it was doing about 7.
Thankfully, there's not...
It was the perfect cinematic experience.
Oh, touche. But yeah, I mean, I like it. I'm looking forward actually to playing it with like my in-laws, or the next time some of our friends come over for like dinner or whatever. Like, hey, check out this game. Playing it with them, that would be fun. It's not really good for 2 people. It's not something Katie and I could really play together. That's just the nature of the game it is. Maybe the trivia. You don't know Jack, but none of the other games I don't think would work without more people.
Yeah, which I'm not sure of the minimum number of players on any of the modes.
I think it says 2 for most of them, but I don't think they'd be fun with just 2 people. It's one of those things, the more the merrier.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of board games are playable with only 2 people, but they're not as fun. So, yeah. I don't, I like it, but I don't really know if I have much else to say about it.
So, moving on to your lone solo game?
Yeah. Well, I've got 2 left. Derail Valley, which I talked about last week. I just wanted to quickly say, like...
Oh, so you're derailing the segue.
Oh, yeah. So, talked about it last week. Brought up, a bunch of issues with it that I was like, if they just fix this stuff, I could recommend it a lot better. So we record on Tuesday night. On Wednesday, they updated the game, and they were like, hey, we've been hearing community feedback about the non-VR players.
You're welcome.
Being unable to teleport. So they added that. It's more simplified. You can only teleport to the nearest station, but it teleports you to the nearest station and spawns a train for you that you can drive, because not all of the stations have the diesel engine, which is the only one you can drive at the beginning until you get the license for the steam train. And then they also fixed the problem with trains, or with loaded train cars just derailing, at the slightest anything that's, even 1 mile an hour too fast, or, going across a bump or something. They said it was an issue with collision mesh issues, and it was like causing the physics to go crazy, and it would bump the train cars off the track if they connected with each other too hard. So they fixed that, and I have played it quite a bit since with my kid, maybe between 2 and 3 hours this past week, and it's a much better experience. So still pretty bare bones. if you want more than just, hey, I'm going to drive this train around in first person and make a little money and do a little exploring. Like, if you want something more than that, it's not there. Still sort of a pretty, like, train enthusiast-centered game. But, I mean, they fixed the two biggest problems it had, so yeah, I could now recommend it as, like, just a general curiosity if you see it on sale for a few bucks. And then if this is something that you're into, but you don't have a VR headset, well, that's okay. It now has some more quality of life features for the non-VR folks. So, yay! The other game, though, that I played this week, the big one, was I played the Anthem demo over the weekend. And boy, do I like this game. I like it a lot. So, I'm a big fan of the looter shooter. I really enjoyed the first Destiny, before they ruined it with the business model. I really liked the Division. I mean, I still like the Division. I picked it up, cheap a couple of years back now at this point, I guess. Played through a bunch of it with people on here in the community. Really enjoyed that. So, and I've been looking forward to Anthem for a long time. I mean, the idea of flying basically Iron Man suits around in a looter shooter open world with BioWare on it. Initially I was like, ooh, but, I have reservations, which I'll talk about in a minute. But, I've been looking forward to it for a while. My biggest fear has always been, like, EA is going to cram it full of loot boxes or do crazy microtransactions or really wreck the progression of the game. And the demo, at least, doesn't have those problems. Now, the demo is split off from, I think they said it was from the last build in December, right before the game, air quotes, went gold for distribution on consoles. So they have said that they have made changes to it, fixed bugs, and adjusted the game balance, which the game balance in the demo I thought was pretty good.
Well, at least they're not calling it a beta, right?
Yeah, I was very happy they didn't call it a beta. But, so that's got me nervous, because I feel like the game is very well balanced around just playing. There's definitely going to be microtransactions. There is a premium currency. They have stated that the microtransactions are going to be for cosmetic only stuff, which, depending on how you feel about that. But for the demo portion,
it also
like
depends
earning
on how much you actually trust them to keep that promise.
Yeah, I don't trust them as far as I can throw them.
Lift with the legs.
I really hope I'm wrong, basically, on this. But, the amount of currency that you got was, it felt, like it wasn't too grindy. I'm sure there would be items in there that they haven't released yet that would be more grindy, but for getting all of the general equipment, the currency acquisition felt pretty well balanced. The actual leveling up of your character felt balanced properly.
Okay, well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I just happened to go over to Reddit because I figured I wasn't going to have anything to contribute to this, so I started looking at politics. But I clicked on r/games and Polygon Anthem 19 changes from the demo to the live game.
Okay.
So let's see. Voice chat with strangers on by default.
That was off by default in the demo.
Squad location
that's
status
not
will be easy to find.
Just turn off. It was easy to find in the demo?
Let's see. There's a squad widget at launch. So it looks like some sort of mobile app, maybe.
Okay, don't care.
Walking around Fort Taurus will be faster.
Yes, I was about to bitch about that so hardcore. You walk so slow.
Let's see. Frame rate will be fixed on consoles. At a blazing 30 FPS.
Oh, they said it was going to be 60 on One X and PS4 Pro.
Well, they just said...
reel that back?
Well, this is responding to different tweets. So, random guy says, will the frame rate be fixed on consoles? And Ben Irving, who is, I'm just double checking, lead producer of Anthem, so, someone that might be in the know, says yes at 30. Yes at launch 30. And doesn't give any caveats to the Pro, so no. Let's see.
Sucks to be them.
Let's see. Promote to leader will be available for squads. So, yeah. Inscriptions will display correctly rather than at 1%, or sorry, at 0%. No idea what that is.
I'm not sure I know what that is either.
Premier and detonator abilities will be more clear.
I mean, that was pretty clear. It would tell you if you had a possible detonation. So those work like the Mass Effect combos, where you get two effects that can create like a big explosion or another effect. And I mean, it tells you on all the weapons what the detonation combos are, and it'll, like, whenever you would hover your cursor over an enemy, if you had an ability that could detonate, it would say, like, the ability would light up on your HUD, and it would say detonate if you used it. So I don't know how they could make that any clearer, but
Presence.
okay.
It will be easier to see underwater. It will be brighter, essentially. Let's see.
Okay.
Inscriptions will be for the correct javelin each time. So, loot.
I guess.
No,
Inscriptions.
it looks like it's fixing a bug where it's showing the wrong thing.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. One of the new javelins will be unlocked after the game's tutorial.
Okay, so there's 4 possible javelins. It gave you the Ranger, which is like the default sort of jack of all trades one, and then you unlocked a second one in the demo.
Yeah, let's see. So we are stuck with the Ranger until we level up the full game. So you get the Ranger +1. Not sure if you get a choice or what.
It let you choose between the other 3.
So it sounds like it's
demo,
pretty much the same then. Weapon and ability balance has changed. Which, there's a bad one for you, huh?
Yeah, I mean, that, depending on how they do
they
it,
just say
how
some
bad it
changes
is.
were made, but it's not final balance.
I mean, that one's hard to say. Most of the balance that I'm talking about is like progression and things like that. The thing with looter shooters is that you're always going to kind of be balancing like what's OP and what's not, and whose supers do whatever.
Well,
and that's something that might be frustrating. But
talking about the looter shooter, crafting items and materials won't be purchasable for real money. Which, if they did, that's a dead game.
What made those materials purchasable?
Yeah. Because, it's just the whales would be able to do everything, and they would bounce around. The whales be able to just buy everything.
Yes, there's no PvP, so I'm not sure exactly. Like, I'm not trying to say you're wrong. I'm just not sure how that would work.
The grind.
Yeah.
They would bounce around trying to maximize the grind, because is it inherent that they'll bounce around? Well, if you just buy, spend $5 instead. No, but we're talking about EA and the AAA gaming industry as a whole. So, of course it'll be balanced around it. Just look at, the last Shadow of Mordor game. They actually had to rebalance the entire last act when they removed the microtransactions.
Yeah. So, is that all of them, or is there more?
No, there's still more.
Okay.
Let's see. Game performance will be improved. Likely,
the game performance was okay.
Likely not much for next weekend, but there's things in the main game that's improved.
Yeah, I mean, the game performance was okay. I mean, my GPU was definitely a bottleneck. I mean, the RX 480 is not like a terrible card, but it's 2 years on from its release, and it was a budget card at release. But, I mean, turning off sort of the usual, like, turn down post-processing, turn off motion blur, reduce VSync, which I know is more CPU bound than GPU bound, but, turn down those things. Somewhere around between medium and high settings, I was averaging 60 just about everywhere. There were a few places in Tarsus where, Fort Tarsus, where like crazy lighting effects would sometimes just like wreck my frame rate for a minute. But the general gameplay, I had a steady 60, no problem.
Let's see. Players won't be able to hold on to echoes indefinitely.
Echoes are these consumable items you can create with the crafting materials. They give you squad bonuses and things like that when you go out either on missions or just to explore the open world. I didn't use any of them. I didn't do very much like gathering and crafting. Like I messed with the system for a hot minute just to check it out. So I'm not 100% sure how that works anyways.
Let's see. Screen size could be adjusted. This is more of a console thing. My screen is too big for the TV is going to be... why do people type like this? Is there going to be a setting to fix that on release? So essentially trying to shrink down the display. So, yeah. Let's see. The launch bay will be a new social hub.
Yeah, they talked about that. Basically, when you're in Fort Tarsis, you're by yourself, because the story portion, the BioWare story choices and things can't really affect the open world. So Tarsis is kind of cordoned off from everything. But they have a social area where you can meet up in your suit, in your javelin, and check out your friends' cool stuff and chat that way.
Let's see. All cosmetics will be earnable with in-game currency, but they don't say how long. They just say nothing will be locked behind microtransactions.
Okay. So let me talk a minute about the cosmetic system since you brought that up. It goes with the color palette is as impressive, if not more impressive, than Warframe. It's got something like 200 preset colors. You can, create custom colors with a color wheel or, entering RGB values and stuff like that. You can store up to 100 custom colors, and then you have 200 preset colors. Plus there are 16 different finishes for your suit. And then there are multiple different material types. I think there's 12 material types that the finishes each look different on. And then also there are different paint schemes. I assume the different paint schemes are probably going to be microtransaction or behind the premium currency.
If they weren't.
They weren't in the demo, but I would be really surprised if that wasn't behind the premium currency. But none of the color stuff showed up in the... Because they had this stuff separated between like the default and then the cosmetic items that were purchasable for the premium currency, and none of the colors or armor finishes or anything were behind that. So there is a massive amount of customization you can do to your suit. As much, if not more, than what you can do in Warframe. The suits, both of the suits that I had...
Which is impressive because Warframe is one of the more in-depth customization things. It's just, there's a lot of microtransactions, but then again, on Warframe side of things, it's locked behind a premium currency as well, but the premium currency is tradable. There's some that's real money only at this point, but not a lot, but that is expanding, so yeah, that is a little troubling on the Warframe front, but that's usually also player-submitted stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a revenue share.
So, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up since you had brought it up. Continue.
Let's see. Enemies shouldn't evaporate anymore. They're making it so that enemies just don't disappear.
That didn't seem like too much of a problem. That's pretty standard video game stuff to
video game
kill an
logic
enemy
even?
and they... Yeah. Ding! You kill an enemy, they disappear or evaporate or, burn up or whatever. That's fine, I guess, but I didn't really even notice that just because that's what video games do.
Let's see. Factions to work for. We've talked about reputation changes. No. Okay, anarchists, free lancers, centenars, and represent the factions currently in Anthem. Doing missions and making conversation choices during the free play events all give you specific points towards each faction. Getting those points applies to challenges which unlock crafting blueprints and other goodies. They also change the look of your personal Fort Talis, so the factions actually do something?
I don't know. All of that content was not available. You could go up and talk to the faction leaders, and you could have some basic conversations with them, but anything for, missions or the special equipment or whatever was grayed out, and it would say, this content is not available in the demo. So I have no clue. My best guess is that it's going to work something like the other looter-shooter type games, like Destiny or whatever, and you can get special gear from them and be sent on special dailies, essentially.
Yeah, that's basically how it works in Warframe. You equip a cosmetic that as you grind experience, it converts a certain amount of experience. I'm not sure if it takes it from the pool. I don't think it does. And converts it to a faction reputation currency. And as you level up the faction, you have to essentially max it out on each rank and then sacrifice an item, usually a fairly decent item, as well as some of the non-premium currency to level up to the higher rank to get better stuff unlocked, and also you get a free item from that rank. So it's worthwhile to do, but also an interesting thing on Warframe's front that I'm not sure if they'll do it on this, probably not, is that the factions actively work against one another. So as you level up, let's say faction A, well, they have an ally that you get half a rep for. So faction B, if you get 20 rep, faction B will get 10. But on the flip side of things, faction 1, which is opposed to faction A, you lose rep with. So eventually you become enemies with someone. And once you drop to a certain point of being hated by them, they'll actually send death squads after you to invade your missions. Which is a system I really like.
I don't know if that will play out, but it's very clear from the story content that was available in the demo that the Freelancer faction, which is the faction that you're a part of, is not very popular. There are a lot of people that hate you for one reason or another, so I don't know if that will be possible, but there is a chance based on how they've set up the story content that they've revealed so far, so who knows.
But yeah, that's all of them.
Okay, so that's covered just about everything. The two parts that I do want to talk about briefly, the first is the story. It was just a snippet, what do they call them? Vertical slices or whatever.
Yeah, which I hate that term because, that's, you never know if that vertical slice is actually in the actual game. See, that one Alien game, right? Colonial Marines.
Yeah, but you had 4 story missions that covered sort of, I guess, an arc or character arc or something. And the writing is good. The voice acting is good. I recognized some of the voice actors from other BioWare titles, particularly Mass Effect, and what's the one with the dragon? Dragon Age. Particularly Mass Effect and Dragon Age, the more recent games in those series. I recognize some of the voices. But within the 90 minutes or so it took me to do those missions, a character I knew nothing about and was kind of dropped in the middle of their story, because the character that you're interacting with is obviously an important side character, based on what you're doing for him and sort of the little arc that you go through. And within that time frame, I went from not knowing who this guy was to actually caring about him and wanting to help fix what had happened to him, which I'm not going to spoil at this point in case anybody is really interested and wants to check it out. But you can see the writing influence from them. Unfortunately, the true BioWare RPG choose your own adventure type play thing is definitely not going to shine very much. All of the choices are binary, be they dialogue choices or actual decisions you're making about something. Yes or no, am I nice to this person? Am I mean to this person? Whatever. And there is some stuff you could do with that, obviously, and I've seen them, do it in other games, with more minor characters. But it sucks that, we're not going to get a full BioWare experience, which I didn't expect that going in. That was never very high on my expectations. I'm actually pretty impressed with what I've seen so far, with what they were able to do with the limitations imposed upon them by this type of game. But it's definitely not going to be a Mass Effect or a Dragon Age or whatever level of experience.
Which, depending on the person with the recent Mass Effect, may be a good thing.
Yeah.
Couldn't help myself.
No, that's fair. So, again, not a lot of it shown, but definitely BioWare's strengths still shine through in that aspect, and I really hope that the rest of the game can kind of live up to that, or, maintain that standard, I guess is a better way to say it. The final thing is the gameplay loop, which I started out saying, I really love the gameplay loop, but it feels different. It doesn't feel like any of these other types of,
it's more ability-based from
shooters.
Everything I've seen. Which some people are decrying because it takes away from the aspect of being a, looter shooter.
But I like that. I like that aspect. In the games I've played before, I always focus on the abilities more than just the shooting and the looting, because that's what makes the game more, unique or more interesting to me. If you take those things away and you stay on the ground and just run around and punch people and shoot people, it feels like The Division. Which is not necessarily a bad thing. I liked the way that The Division played, but if that's all it was, it would not be exciting. But you throw in the abilities and the combos, the detonations, like, what there are in Mass Effect. You throw in the flight aspect of it and how good that loop can feel. Flying into a situation, using your abilities, doing maybe like a ground pound, throwing enemies off. Then depending on what your next ability is, maybe like a sort of a bubble shield to protect yourself. Then throwing out an elemental grenade, maybe fire, and then your teammate throwing in a lightning grenade and it creating, an elemental explosion. Or for me, playing the Colossus, like that's definitely my preferred class out of what I checked out and what I know about the other classes. The Colossus has got roughly 10 times the health and 10 times the shield of the other classes, but you don't have your shield is an ability. So you pull your shield out. When you pull your shield out, you can't shoot, but you can still use other abilities. So the Colossus is designed around pulling aggro. So, drop into a situation, do like a massive ground pound, get people off balance, then deploy your shield, pull aggro on all the enemies, get them in a line or something for your teammates, swap to your artillery cannon or your mortar, blow them away maybe, fly up, get a new position, do it again. It's all very quick, very fluid, and comboing those abilities either with your own stuff or with your teammates just feels just perfect. I love it. So as long as they don't wreck, I'm gonna wait. I'm speaking highly of this game, but as I said before, it's a build that they have from December. We just spent some time talking about changes that they're making, particularly to balance, and talking about the microtransaction system. Depending on how they go with it, I could see myself either buying and embracing this game or just throwing it out the window. Like if they put loot boxes in, I'm out. I don't care, whatever. I'm out. I'm not going to do that. If they really wreck the gameplay progression balance in favor of microtransactions, which I don't trust them to not do that, depending on how bad it is, you're just going to have to wait for reviews and things. Depending on how bad it is, I might be willing to go in on it at a certain price point, maybe down the road when it's, the expansion content is included with the base game, or when it's on sale at some point. I might be willing to go into it for that. If it's way too exploitative, way too grindy, I'd still be out. I just don't have time to dedicate to that. If the game released, today, as it was in the demo, just with the rest of the content, I'd buy it right now. I liked it that much and felt like that the gameplay balance and everything was fair. So basically it's on them at this point to how much are they going to muck it up? How much are they going to get in there and sort of turn the dials to try and maximize, player spending and things like that.
Getting all the money.
Yeah. And if it's too much, I'm not going to buy it. But if it's, they don't mess with it at all, or if they just tweak it a little bit, I'd be willing to buy it at certain price points in the future. So it'll probably be like I think you said this when we were just chatting before we started recording. You kind of have to wait like a month or so.
Yeah, because that's the new thing is that they release the gold version. Then they roll in all the microtransaction bullshit after the reviews come in. Which is just so fucking scummy, isn't it? Yeah. So, the game to like the general public, if you didn't pre-order any of their stupid special editions, is I don't know the exact date. I think it's in like 2 weeks. It's towards the end of February. The fact that EA Help tweeted out a flowchart or a table, it's just, right?
Yeah. So if you didn't pre-order it at all, the different special editions basically give you different launch times. But if you didn't pre-order it at all, I think it's in like 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, whenever the game, releases. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
which Jim Sterling actually talked about the whole, missing out syndrome. That
Yeah.
which
FOMO,
which
fear
is
of missing
right.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So probably around this time in March, or around that time in March, like last week in March, I'll see where it's at and then make that decision.
I would wait till April. Just because of them waiting to see what after everybody's able to play it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Anthem, the Anthem demo. I really want it to work out, but I have no good faith that it will. Basically, is where I'm at on this. So prove me wrong, EA. Prove me wrong. So with that out of the way,
yeah.
Ready to? Do you need a quick break, or are you ready to move on?
I think I'm ready to move on.
Okie dokie.
Unless you need to hit the elevator.
No, I'm good. So we'll move on to the Gameclub game, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. If this is your first time joining us for Gameclub, hello, welcome. What Gameclub is that Rage and I typically have very different types of games that we play.
Oh boy, is
different
that
tastes in games.
Is that not as apparent as this time around?
Indeed. But yes, different taste in games, things that we like, dislike, and go for. Gameclub is a way for us to... Indeed.
Sorry to cut in.
But Gameclub is where we we pick a game, we both sit down and play through it, and then come together and talk about it. And we include the community as well. So up front, on this one, before we really get into it, we got a couple of community submissions. One of them was a rather long text letter from Ghost Shark, which, depending on exactly where it fits in, I'm going to record it and then put it in post. We have both read through it, and if something comes up that is related to it that we need to talk about, we'll bring it up. I might just lead with it, actually, and cut it in around here. Hey guys, it's your friend, the Slacker, sending in a written letter for a change because real life says screw you. There's no time for you to sit around and talk to yourself. I had promised I would send something in for the VGL Game Club of the Month, so here it is. Coming under the wire a bit, but hey, better late than never, or in this case, almost late is better than not at all. Anywho, on to the game. Before I discuss what I thought about the current playthrough, I thought I'd delve into history a bit. As some of you are aware, Vampire Bloodlines was a sequel of sorts, the first game being an RPG similar to Baldur's Gate series, only in full 3D. First released in 2000, it's the story of a knight in the Middle Ages, Christoph, who was turned into a vampire, and his sudden inclusion into the vampire society. It took place over centuries, with several locations being featured. You'd venture through Prague and Vienna shortly after Christoph's embrace. Then the story shifts to modern day, and you visit London and New York. All the while, you learn the early origins of the lore that exists in the Bloodlines games. Unfortunately for me, I suffer from a short attention span, and while I love the game and story, there was something missing for me to really get stuck in, so I never managed to complete it. Not really a mark against the game, it's just something I've struggled with since I've begun gaming, and it's why I have yet to finish any old-style RPG like that, like Baldur's Gate or early Fallout titles. Which brings me to the first point I'll make about Bloodlines. There's something about the combination of the story and the way it was delivered that kept me engaged. It's also what keeps me coming back every few years to take another crack at it. With Bloodlines putting you right into the action rather than showing you a view from above, it makes your choices feel more visceral and direct. The game managed to grab my attention from the beginning, and I enjoyed the strange balance between combat and social abilities, and how the difficulty could ramp itself up depending on your choices. Of course, that could lead to several hard situations if you didn't keep some sort of balance, but that's a whole other issue. Bloodlines came out in 2004, right in the middle of my first deployment in Iraq. It was on my radar well before release, because that was right around the time of my first major dabbling into tabletop RPGs. We had a little group that played a few sessions of 3.5 D&D before collapsing, and I had a friend who had promised to start up Vampire once we got back to Texas. I was actually home on leave when it released, but never really had time to install it before heading back overseas. Thanks to my brand new gaming laptop, I was able to pick up back home though, and I was eventually able to enjoy the game during my off hours and managed to bang out a few hours a night between work shifts, mortar attacks, and the occasional Halo 2 practice match. I say eventually because since I hadn't been able to install and set up the game prior to returning to Iraq, by the time I was able to get settled back in at main base and get Steam working and connected, I was met with an update that took about 4 days on the local Haji internet. Fun fact, Bloodlines 3 was the third game in my Steam library, the first being Half-Life 2, second being an indie title called Gish, and if I remember correctly, I banged out a full playthrough while in country, and over the years have gone back to the well several more times to reminisce and try the game from other clans and playstyles. My first and short-lived attempt at the game was the Brewhawk Clan. I had figured that there was nothing that couldn't be solved with a punch to the face or some bullets. I drastically underestimated the power of social interaction in the game and realized I missed out on some fun story bits, so re-rolled a character after a few hours. Enter my Ventru character, and the first person I managed to beat the game with. It was interesting being able to screw with people's minds and order them around, but by the end I found myself basically scrounging every bit of XP into combat skills just to catch up to be relevant when words and wits weren't enough to solve situations. Unfortunately, this was back in the early days of the game, and you really got a sense of where development was rushed or cut to finish other areas of the project on time. I've had several other playthroughs over the years, from a Toreador heartthrob to a Gangrel I imagined as an Edwards-Jacob hybrid, and yes, it was around the time of the Twilight craze. Get off my case. I tried the Nosferatu, but just wasn't really enjoying how you had to sneak around everywhere and be the monster of the night, so to speak. Without doubt, though, my favorite clan to play was the Malkavians. From the interesting dialogue options to the combat abilities, I was able to enjoy just about every interaction in the game. And the dialogue was full of funny or interesting quips with the occasional prophetic insight into events that would happen later in game. Plus the ability to take the easy route in conversation by using blood magic to give other people a little taste of crazy was fun too. And poor Heather. As a Malk, if you turn Heather, the troubled girl you first meet at the hospital in Santa Monica, into your ghoul, she becomes just as scrambled in the head as you. For this most recent playthrough for Gameclub, I made the promise that I would stream a playthrough of it during the month. I was pumped to get to play my Malk again and just have fun cheesing it up with craziness. Unfortunately, between real life and DOJ commitments, I wasn't really able to devote a lot of time to the game and so barely got to the downtown area. But when I did have time to get into it, I was having a blast. So I don't plan to stop just because the Game Club is over. I'll keep streaming this when I have time, because to me this is a case of a game living up to the nostalgia. Even though the game may not be perfect, what it tried to do was novel, and I can't think of any vampire-themed games that have had a lasting legacy that Bloodline has. While looking through information about the game as I was writing this, I saw that Paradox got the rights to the Bloodlines franchise in 2015, with their CEO stating that when the time is right, I guess a sequel will find its place in the market. To that I say, for a game old enough to be getting its learner's permit this year, I think the time is more than due for a successor to the title. Because it would be good for you guys to have the context of the letters going forward. Yeah, you like the little pause. Yeah. That's my quick editing cue to see, yes, here's where the thing goes. But anyways, put it in there. That way you guys have its context going forward as well. And then we got sort of a summation from Cube about what his sort of overall takeaway was from the game, which I think will be better to bring up during the actual discussion itself, particularly when I'm talking about things.
Yeah, because you're going to be talking about this mostly.
Indeed. So, right off the top, very generally, Rage, did you like or not like this game?
Well, I have to say that out of all the game clubs I've played so far, which has been all of them.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
I would say this is fighting for Dragon Commander as my least favorite. Skyrim is number 3 on that list, by the way, but that's only because you could throw enough mods at it to make it be decent. But right. Yeah, I'm a gameplay guy, all right? I'm not a fan of horror. I'm not a fan of stealth games, and even though this does have the option to not be stealthy, it kind of really pushes you into at least somewhat stealth in the very beginning, because you're just not strong enough to do anything else, and you don't have the stuff to be able to do go toe to toe with a lot of things. So, yeah, that's 2 strikes against it right away. Then, what's the proper term for this? Some really, really weird choices on just how the controls are mapped, especially the weapon swap. Because I decided, I'm going to go do just complete default controls. I'm not going to change anything. This ought to give you an idea of how odd things are. I didn't know there was quick save, because typically quick save is F5, in pretty much every game ever. It's F9.
Yep, I told you that over the weekend when we were talking about it.
Yeah, F9's usually quick load, so you don't hit that, right?
Yeah, F9 is quick save and F12 is quick load.
Yeah, to change weapons, you start hitting F1 or F2 to switch between melee or ranged, and then you have to cycle through them, and then I believe it's left click to be able to draw them. So in order to do that, okay, now the developer's keyboards may be slightly different, but for me, I have to take my fingers off the movement keys. And typically, whenever I'm wanting to swap weapons, that means shit's going down.
Right.
Am I the only one that's seen a problem with this? I got killed a couple times because someone was charging me with a melee weapon, and I had my pitiful little pistol, which I figured out why I didn't have the shotgun, by the way. The shotgun, I believe you get from that side quest on the beach. That actually bugged out for me, and I didn't get any of the loot from that.
Oh, okay. The one where you go up like to the hill.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
That bugged out. I got nothing in that.
Okay.
Everything dropped through the floor, and every time I reloaded it, it dropped through the floor out of reach. And I didn't bother with the console. So, yeah, that should tell you, my experience with things. I mean, I got stuck indoors a lot. I got stuck trying to get into a air vent half a dozen different times. It just irritated the ever-living fuck out of me.
What rate or what class or race or clan, whatever, what clan did you play?
Well, whenever I did the character creation, at first I did the questionnaire, and every time something that says, well, you'll face them, or you'll go in and beat the ever-living shit out of them. I took that. So, of course, it gave me the stealth class, the Nosferatu.
Is that the one that you actually played?
No.
Okay.
No, because as I was going through the tutorial, and they started talking about, you're going to be having to play stealthily. You're going to have to be going through the sewers. You can't be seen by the general public. Nope.
So let me just... Sorry.
So I ended up... it's the one that starts with a T, the Toblerone? Oh, wait, that's a
Toreador?
Yeah, that one.
That's the one that I played. Okay. So let me... Just for anyone who's listening who hasn't played Vampire, there are, I believe, 9 different...
There's 5 different clans, and then there's a bunch of different histories that affects your character. I did like the character creation. There are things in this I like, by the way. I didn't hate everything.
Yeah, so there's basically 9 different classes that you can play, and each of them have, their various special abilities or whatever. The 2 that I was told don't play for the first time are the Nosferatu, which look hideous and immediately give away that you're some sort of mutated creature. So whenever people see you, you lose a point essentially your browning.
Yeah, a point in the Masquerade, which if you lose 5, it's game over.
Right. Or the Malkavians, which have contact with the demon world or something, but basically they see things almost like they're schizophrenic. And so the dialogue doesn't make any sense if you're playing through it the first time. You get all sorts of stuff thrown at you that foreshadows future events, and characters interact with you differently, and it makes it really difficult to understand anything on the first playthrough. So those 2 I was told by Ghost and Cube, don't play those the first time. And I was like, well, I want to be a character who's really good at communicating with people, and I want to do a bunch of dialogue based stuff. And they were like, you should probably be Toreador. So that's what I went with.
Yeah, but then late game, that kind of falls down, huh?
Yeah, so this game suffers from the what I have dubbed the wedge effect. You start out at the beginning, there's tons of stuff to do, ways to do everything, and the farther you get in the game...
That's when your underwear rides up, right?
Hey-o. The farther you get in the game, because of different developmental choices and then problems that they were facing and deadlines and stuff, the game narrows its focus to basically combat. And Toreadors, unless you balance them out on purpose, you're leaning much more into all of the different charisma type stuff and into the more intelligence, dexterity based things for sneaking to avoid combat, and then communication to bypass as much stuff as possible. So you get to the end game if you haven't prepared for it and you're horribly underpowered, which I was which I was by the time I got to Chinatown, which is the final area. But I was warned about it, so basically all the side quests I knocked out in Chinatown going towards the end game, and then the last couple of quests leading up to it, I was just all of my points into combat. So I balanced my character out, I think just barely, by the time I got to the end. Which I have not finished it. I got way farther than you did. I put about 45 hours into it, but I spent a ton of time exploring everything, every nook and
I only
cranny.
put about 5 or 6 in, and that was mostly me just getting frustrated.
Yeah, and I explored as many side quests as I possibly could. I'm in the whole, I'm into the end game. I've got the sarcophagus, which I guess I'll talk about in the story in a little bit, and then I'm rescuing the scientist man who can open it, or who's supposed to be able to open it. And after that, there might be one or two other small things to do, but then I know it sort of branches off, and it's okay, you have to make your choices for what you're going to do for the end game, which faction do you side with, and things like that. So, I'm right there at the end game, and I do intend to finish it. I thoroughly enjoyed this game. I agree with everything that you said about janky controls.
Especially,
and
I could get past janky controls if I actually cared about the game, or if it wasn't in real time. Because one of my favorite games is Dwarf Fortress. The poster child for janky controls, but it's not real time, and it has an interest for me beyond, or I should say, it has an interest for me, just in general.
Right. And I'm, we've said this time and time again, but, in case you're a new listener, I'm a story guy. If gameplay's good, I like it. Obviously, I just talked about how good the gameplay was in Anthem, and it made me want to buy the game. If gameplay is great, that's awesome. But I can put up with a lot of bullshit if I really get into the story.
Yeah,
and the story in this game...
Yeah, and I could get past janky controls if the gameplay is good, but this... that and also the movement just is so weird.
Define weird.
It felt like everything was covered in ice.
I did not feel that way at all.
Either that, or I had roller skates on, because there was always this weird acceleration and stopping.
I don't feel like I experienced that at all. But again, this could be one of those things where because you're more picky about that stuff, you noticed and I didn't.
Yeah, it felt like the movement wasn't. Saying that it wasn't fluid enough isn't quite right, because there was a type of acceleration that felt a bit more realistic, but it's like you were constantly running at a full sprint, even though your character didn't look like it, which comes down to the whole animation problem as well that the game kind of presents itself with. Especially,
did you play a male character or a female character?
Male character.
Okay, I played female. I don't know if that would have anything to do with it. I do get what you're saying about full sprint. I mean, basically, it's full sprint, or you hold down shift and you walk very slowly. So I do get that.
Yeah, but
I didn't feel...
but the thing is that you're not moving fast enough to warrant skidding to a stop over the course of 5 feet.
When I go back and play it, I'm going to see if I notice that now.
And that was something else that kind of took me out of it, because in some of the stealth sections, I actually overshot where I was trying to stop because I kind of skidded out around a corner, Scooby-Doo-ish almost,
Yeah, I don't think I ever had that happen. I'm really thinking hard, and I don't recognize that as I'm just gonna have to pay attention when I go back and play it, and I'll report back.
Yeah, this may be one of those things that I picked up because I'm a gameplay guy.
Yeah. And I avoided combat so much.
Oh, the combat is just horrible in this.
I didn't think the combat was too terrible. I got into a routine that kind of worked for me. So you have different vampire powers that do different things.
Yeah, which... is there anything in the game that says exactly what those different powers do, if you don't remember them?
Yes. When you go to your character screen, you can hover over it, and it tells you in tooltips.
Because I hovered over it, and I didn't get a tooltip. So maybe it was broken.
You have to hover over the actual XP dots, not over the word.
Of course, of course. How dare I hover over the damn word?
And it tells you based on the dots what it does, and then each dot tells you what it changes for the level up. But the Toreador's vampire abilities, one of them is called Celerity, which basically slows down time or changes your time perception, Matrix style. You move fast and everyone moves slow. So if I would get jumped in combat, or I was in a bad way, I'd pop Celerity and run, and the fact that they were moving slowly usually gave me enough time to hide and change weapons, which not obviously like that's not ideal. That's not perfect because of the wacky, weird control layout. But
And also,
I mean, that was kind of
that,
the loop I got into for combat.
yeah, well, also the fact that in order to change, unless you go into the hotkeys, which then you have to, remember those. The default way to change the different powers is the mouse wheel to scroll through them all.
Which that didn't bother me all that much. I typically use mouse wheel to scroll through things unless it's just like tons of things. But you only have 4. You've got your 3 vampire powers.
5, isn't it?
The heal and the buff. So yeah, 5. But okay, so blood heal and celerity were 1 and 2 basically, and those were the only 2 that I almost ever used. If I was going to use the buff, the only thing I used it for was to boost my lock picking skill.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm usually like,
which I did like
still.
the fact that the stats made more of an impact on the individual skills outside of just them being flat combat stats. That's something I did like in the level up system, where if you instead of putting points into hacking or lock picking, you can put points in the stat that they are directly based around, and get more of a overall boost. And you also have the buff ability from the vampire abilities. But I was having trouble actually getting enough blood to power myself. It seemed like I never was able to find people to feed on.
That's a problem in the beginning of the game.
Which is fucking irritating.
But pretty quickly you get access to the blood bank.
I pissed him off.
Yeah, I did too. You can also hookers. Hookers are a good way to get blood.
Yeah, but then you start running into a problem with money.
Yeah, money becomes a non-issue after the early game. Again, that's one of those things. Like, it's early game constraints that I felt like were teaching me how to use my powers sort of efficiently.
Well, I think it's more of I was getting hung up on the gameplay, and honestly, I didn't give a shit about the overall world or the themes of it. I found it's not that I think the game itself is horrible. I do recognize that there's glimmers of a better game under the first rough 5 or 6 hours that I just got stuck on. It's just, for me, the game is about the worst game you could throw at me possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. That's fair. Because all of the things that this game is the worst at and that have aged the worst over time are the things that really frustrate you as a gamer or as a game player. Yeah. Whereas those things don't quite bother me as much. So I was
also I'm an older gamer than you, so I've seen the evolution.
Well, I mean, I was playing. Let's see, this came out in 2004. I mean, I was in high school in 2004, which I know, I'm young, whatever. But I was playing, games like this and had been playing games on PlayStation, and I was starting some PC gaming around this time. I was playing a huge swath of games, and going forward, I've seen the evolution of this. There's things that stick out to me that feel very much like maybe Elder Scrolls borrowed them, or maybe they borrowed them from Elder Scrolls, maybe from Morrowind, and then reiterated on in Oblivion or whatever. But I see those things, and I can see the evolution of the game mechanics.
Well, I just look at this, even comparing it directly to Half-Life 2, which are released on the same day and under the same engine. Yes, I realize if we're talking native support with the engine versus them working with essentially a prototype. But the gameplay is just so much crisper in Fallout 2. So it's not the engine or even the age of the game. It's just them not knowing how to handle it because it was Source was a brand new engine at the time.
You said Fallout 2. Did you mean
Half-Life 2? Sorry.
Okay. No, it's fine.
I'm sitting here sitting on the Steam homepage, and I'm seeing Fallout here.
There are some things I like about the gameplay, though, that I wish that more modern games had. For example, I know that it could come across as tedious, but I like that whenever you go to do stuff on a computer, you have to type in the commands you want, like an old command prompt or DOS line system. I liked that. I was like, okay, that's cool. That's neat. I can get into this.
In bits, I think it would be all right, but doing it for long term, I think it would get very old. And also, there's a slight problem with being able to do that on a console.
Yeah, that's fair. But, I mean, we weren't playing on consoles. So.
Well, I'm talking about modern games. Modern games have to consider the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, fuck those guys. Shitty peasants. Look at me on my PC high horse. But, no, I liked that. And there were plenty of computers in the game that it felt appropriate for as well. Like, there were lots of computers that I think you would still see in certain applications back there, like Commodore 64s and, machines that clearly would be running on DOS or, MS-DOS or maybe, Windows 3, that era of computers in certain areas that you go to. I mean, you get, in your second apartment that you get a really nice computer. I think you got a laptop in your first apartment that wouldn't quite make as much sense with. But I thought that was a nice touch. So that was something that really, really stuck out to me as being like, oh, I wish that details like this are in more modern games. And there are lots of little details. At first, I was annoyed by the fact that there's no on-screen map or anything.
There is a map.
Well, yeah, I know there's a map you can go to. You can go to the bus stops and you can look at the maps on the bus stops. But
yeah, which
initially
I was interesting immersion choice.
Yeah, that was it. That was about what I was about to say. Like, that is very immersive, and I kind of miss some of those aspects in more modern games where it's like, oh, here's the marker that tells you exactly where to go and exactly what to do. And there were times when that was frustrating, and I had to go online and look up like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? And sometimes I would find that the game had just bugged out, and I would have to reload an earlier save to get through. But there were also times where I was like, oh, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, some of the detective work in the opening area was very well done. It's just I was so frustrated by the gameplay. I didn't get to finish the storyline or the quest line, but finding finding Lily is a good example. I finished her quest because I pissed off the blood bank guy. Yeah, and doing the detective work for her, to find her was, actually probably my favorite experience out of it. It's bookended by just so much utter frustration, because to give you an idea of something that I went through on that was part of that, or I don't think part of it, but part of that particular quest line. But I ended up going upstairs in the clinic where she's being held, and whenever you go up there, you run into a security guard wandering around. All right, fine. Well, I'm a toreador, so I have the ability to essentially talk my way out of a lot of situations. So I said, oh no, I'm supposed to be here, and he says, okay, well, see your way out. Well, I go start poking around there, and I'm starting to get hungry, so I save and quit out of the game to go eat dinner. Come back, load in. The guard's pissed with me. Loading and saving and reloading the game clears that flag on that guard and turns him hostile. Yeah. And I ended up losing a fair amount of gameplay to that. And like I said, there's just so many things that just irritated the ever-living hell out of me. Some of them bugs, some of them conscious design decisions. Like I said before, I lost a good bit of loot that would have helped with another quest, because I ended up being essentially an unwinnable fight to finish off another quest, because the good gun I'm supposed to get in another quest dropped through the damn floor. And I didn't know the command at the time to do no clip, because I didn't even consider that. So yeah.
Yeah. Some of these issues, like,
and I was playing with the latest community patch.
Yeah, I was too.
I mean the one that came out during Gameclub.
Oh, I didn't swap. I didn't know there was one that came out. Another one that came out.
Yeah, there was one that came out about a week or so in, so I ended up swapping to that. And I was still having these issues.
I didn't have a lot of those issues. My biggest thing was occasionally, the next part of a quest wouldn't load, and I'd have to reload until it did. Or just hard crash, like system lock crashes. I had about 4 of those in 45 hours, and then I had another, I don't know, half a dozen crash to desktops. That was my biggest frustration. And sometimes they would happen in areas repeatedly, and it would happen, multiple times during a gameplay session. Sometimes I played for like 8 hours one Saturday and had no problems at all. Perfect gameplay for like 8 hours. And I was like, yeah. And then the next time I played, it was like hard crash to desktop, hard crash to desktop, hard system crash, force reset. It's like, okay. So it had moods, I guess. But no, I did not experience the type of bugs that you've talked about. And again, I don't know if I'm just got lucky
or if my particular system didn't like it.
Yeah.
Well, how did you approach the beach house? Because I went in and I turned off the power.
So I basically talked my way in.
Yeah, I talked my way in, but then I was goofing around and I found the breaker box, and I just decided, I'll turn off the power and fight him.
So what I did was I talked my way in. I found my way into the back room where the guy was. I closed the door so that no one could see me. And then I had a conversation with him, and I convinced him to give me whatever it was, the explosive stuff. Like I used my seduction power, because I was playing as a female character, so I used my seduction powers to do that. And whenever you seduce someone, you start making out, and then you go in and you bite their neck, and then that leaves them sort of dazed for a little bit of time. But then I just decided to kill that guy. So I fed on him until he died, and because he's considered like a hostile character, you don't take any negative consequences.
Yeah,
from
because
that.
that's another thing is we didn't talk about was the humanity factor.
Right. So you've got humanity, and then we talked about the Masquerade points. So humanity is on a scale from 0 to 10, and the higher your humanity score is, the less likely you're to go into like sort of a berserk mode, which happens when either you're low on blood, so your vampire's hungry, or when you've taken a lot of damage. And when you go berserk, there are some benefits, and it happened to me a couple of times in gameplay. You do lose control of your character. They basically go on autopilot and start attacking whatever it is that they need to be. But you get a huge stat boost for all of your combat and defensive stats. And Berserk actually saved my ass in a couple of boss fights that I was about to lose, where I went Berserk, and then during the Berserk, I was able to do enough damage to kill the boss. But, the chances increase for that the lower your humanity is. And killing innocents drops your humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And there's sort of different zones in the game. There's Masquerade zones, which are not combat friendly. If you're going to feed on people and things like that, it has to be done in secret, secluded areas where you can't be spotted, or they have to be willing. Like that's why I said prostitutes earlier. You can pay prostitutes to make out with you, and then you feed on their necks. And as long as you don't feed so much that you kill them, there's no negatives to that. And then there's, I forget what they're called, but they're like zones where like the big sort of important characters are, that no combat is allowed, no vampire powers are allowed.
Yeah, essentially the neutral zones.
Yeah.
The only one that's allowed is the blood buff.
Yeah. I think blood heal also. You can do that. Blood buff and blood heal. But, and then there are basically combat zones where anything goes, and if you, start fighting people, as long as they're not considered an innocent, you're fine. And anybody who's going to shoot back at you is not considered an innocent. So anyways, I killed this guy, but because he was behind closed doors, nobody knew that I did it, and feeding counts as a stealth kill. So I just killed him, and then I found like a huge fat stack of cash in a hidden panel, and I just walked out. Later on, I came back and killed him for funsies. Once I was really powerful, I just came back and wiped him out just because I could. But for the initial quest, I seduced him and then killed him.
Yeah, and for me, I went in essentially swinging a baseball bat and had all the loot fall through the floor. Yeah. I didn't find the hidden panel. I'm not sure if that was just I didn't have the skills to be able to spot it, because that's another skill check.
Yeah, so, I mean, you can still find those things if you just, like, go around and mash your face on everything and press F. Is it F to interact? Or E? Whatever the interact button is. But if you've got the skills for it, they light up. They sparkle, and it's like, a thing of interest.
Yeah, they're like a Twilight vampire.
Yes. Yes, they are. Let's see. What else before... I guess I could talk about story some, but that's just going to be a lot of me doing some basic explaining about what has happened and how I feel about it. Let's see. We talked about. I like the XP system in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Because lots of RPGs just encourage you to, kill everything or explore everything or whatever, and you're only awarded XP for either completing quests or, completing, like, steps in quests.
Yeah.
So that helps to encourage different gameplay styles, because you don't feel like you have to kill everything to min-max.
Mm-hmm.
So that was nice. I like that. And speaking of, the ability to, like, approach things differently, you really could bypass huge sections of things by being able to talk your way through something or sneak past something. And sneaking is maybe a little more common in other games, just, avoiding enemies or whatever. But, for example, the one that sticks out in my mind the most is in one of the later sections of the game, the Hollywood section. You're doing sort of another investigation. You're trying to track down a specific videotape that has got evidence about some sort of demons or something like that, and you're trying to find the evidence so you can figure out where these things are and go deal with them. And it leads you to a cemetery in Hollywood, and there's been a zombie outbreak in the cemetery, and there's a guy that's staying in a shack down there, and every night he deals with any zombies that pop up. And when you go in, one of the steps in the quest is to get some information from him. And he tells you, like, hey, I want to go to the strip club and see if I can get laid. I've been here for, so many days. I need a break. So if you want this information, you're going to have to deal with the zombies tonight. And because I was playing a female character, I just seduced him. I didn't really seduce him. I just was like, I don't want to do that. How about I just have sex with you? And he's like, what? Yes, sure, if you'll have sex with me. So there's, an air quotes sex scene where that, it fades to black and there's, sexy time noises. And then it comes back and he's like sitting on the couch smoking a cigarette, and you can talk to him for a minute and he's like, oh yeah, that was, really good. How was it for you? And you can, obviously you can be mean or you can be nice or you can just kind of be honest and be like, oh, I'm a vampire, so sex doesn't quite do it for me like it used to anymore, but you were pretty good, or whatever. And then you completely skip having to do the zombie thing, which you can come back later and you can do that as just like a challenge if you wanna try it out. And I tried it after the fact and I failed miserably because it's all combat and I'm not a combat based character. So if I hadn't been able to approach that in that way, if I had been forced to do it as a combat challenge, I'm not going to say that I couldn't have beaten it. I could have sort of learned the pattern of where the zombies spawn, and thankfully doing headshots with your weapons does massive damage to the zombies. And even the shitty little 38, which is your starting pistol, can kill the zombies in one headshot. But, it would have been a slog. And I just bypassed the whole thing with some dialogue. And there's multiple instances of that happening in the game. Early on, something you might have seen, I don't know if you did or not, was there's a quest where you go into the art gallery on the, was it Malibu Beach?
I didn't go into the art gallery, so no.
Okay, well, so there's like a sort of a bonus objective for that quest is to do it without killing anyone so that you don't make a big scene. But there's a security guard there. And I was able to seduce the security guard, via my dialogue choices. He's hilarious. It's like a big, fat guy, and he's very proud of himself and his accomplishments at being like, I think he was like a football player or something. He's like, yeah, everybody on the team called me Chunk, and he likes it. So you can like seduce him and be like, well, Chunk, how about I give you something to take your eyes off this place? And he's like, oh, what have you got in mind? And you can make out with him and then sort of knock him out and sneak in. You can also there's dialogue options to try and convince him or intimidate him to let you go past as well, but I chose the seduction option. I basically fucked as many people as I could in the game. So that's different ways to do that. And he shows up later in the game too. He's the main security guard for LaCroix? I can't remember how to say his name. The main vampire boss that you see in the game. He's not like the highest level vampire in the lore, but for what you go through, he's the highest sort of level, or most senior or whatever. I don't know exactly how to say it, but he's the security guard in his building. So I wonder what would have happened if I had to kill him, or had chosen to kill him, if that would have reflected poorly on my future interactions with LaCroix. And there are many examples of that throughout the game. Even certain boss fights and things can be skipped via dialogue.
Unfortunately, I got the first boss I encountered was one I couldn't skip.
Yeah, that mini boss, you have to kill him.
Yeah, and I had the shitty little pistol because I lost the shotgun.
If you would have killed him, you get a samurai sword.
Yeah, unfortunately, every time I got him low health, he just charged me, and because of the absolute shit weapon change mechanics, by the time I swapped to this, to my baseball bat, he already got a couple good swings on me, and he would kill you in 4 or 5 hits.
Yeah. Later on in the game, you can get armor, or armored clothing and things like that, which can affect your stats, but give you big defensive boosts and things like that. So I honestly don't use armor, though. I use heavy clothing, which gives you like 1 point of armor and doesn't negatively affect your stats. And the other armor types I've found give you more defensive bonuses but negatively impact your stats, and I'm like, I don't want that. So I've got like this red kimono thing that's considered heavy clothing. It's pretty cool. But there's something else I was going to say, and it just like flew out of my brain. Dang it. Oh, okay, so something else you mentioned was that you don't like the horror aspect of the game. Yeah, you don't like horror.
Yeah, I'm not a big horror fan, so a vampire-based game does nothing for me.
There's not a lot of horror elements.
Well, I'm
There's
talking about the
haunted
theme. I'm not talking about the typical jump scare, that sort of thing.
Right. I see where you're coming from. I didn't feel sort of the same way about it.
It's more being apathetic to a game that's already highly pissing me off.
Yeah.
So I didn't have the drive to try to look past the issues like I do with Dwarf Fortress, where yes, there are things about it that I absolutely hate, particularly with how the game is controlled. But it does enough right that it makes me overlook them. I just don't have that drive for this. So There's no positives to counterbalance the negatives outside of a little glimmer of light here or there.
Right. The game doesn't typically lean into the horror side, though. The horror, aspect of vampires and vampiric sort of lore. There's a few parts.
Yeah,
there's
more
like a haunted house.
Anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I
definitely.
Yeah, whenever you said the haunted house is a horror segment, well, that was one of my 2 choices of going. The other one was bashing my head up against the Asian vampire again, so I doped out.
Yeah, there's like 2 horror-esque segments in the game, and there's some stuff that I'd say occasionally feels kind of spooky, but there's not a lot of jump scares. The haunted house is the only place that has really any jump scares at all, and even they're not that bad. I run screaming from the tiniest little horror thing in anything, and I was able to get through this with only some mild anxiety. So,
well, it's just
take that as you will.
It was more that I was actively hating the game at that point, because I played 5-6 hours of this, and I probably had 2 hours of progress because I lost so much progress going through and having to reload and getting frustrated, walking away for a bit. This game actually shows kind of the weakness of the Gameclub, where I would have not forced myself to try to play it that much, and I would have had a more positive experience. But because I forced myself to continue trying to play a game I was already disliking, it became the Skyrim syndrome.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of only 2 games we've really hardcore disagreed on. Is this and Skyrim.
Yeah, well, Skyrim, my problem with it is that it's dumbed down compared to what the series used to be.
Yeah.
Which it makes me wonder if going back, with how jank Morrowind was, if I would still like it.
Yeah, we could totally do Morrowind and or Oblivion for Gameclub in the future. Those are on the table. I'm trying to. Do you have anything else on your mind, or I'm trying to think if there's anything before I sort of dive into the story side of it to talk about
not
some of
really
what's
on the
gone
technical
on.
aspect I can think of.
Okay. So the story of the game, and I'm gonna try and be as spoiler-free as possible, but to talk about some of this stuff, I will be revealing a few key points. I mean, Gameclub is always, very spoiler-filled, but just in case, because of how story-focused this game is, here there be spoilers. So the game starts out after you go through character creation, and you are a newly sired vampire by someone who doesn't really get much mention beyond the very beginning of the game, who creates you without asking permission, and they kill him for it, and they're about to kill you, and
Or her.
Or yeah. Oh, if you play a male, is it female?
Yeah. No. Here's the interesting part. All right.
Okay.
If you play male, it's female. If you play female, it's male. If you're gay, it's the same gender.
Yeah. That makes sense. I completely missed or forgot about saying.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the game doesn't really care. Like, you can try and seduce anybody. And there are some characters that will be into same-sex relationships and some that are not. And will completely reject you no matter what your skills are. Unless you can just dominate their mind. So I didn't even think twice about that. Which is good, because I tried to bone down with everyone. Good source of blood, that boning down with people.
Sorry, I just saw another headline that this is going to have to be on next week's show, I think.
Okay.
Continue. I'll text you what it is, because I think it'll be a good chuckle for you.
Okay. But after that initial point in the game, basically you're just dropped in and like... Oh boy.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What can I say? I have nothing to say here, so I'm poking around the internet.
Right. But anyways, you go out and basically you just get dropped in, and LaCroix is making you a pawn essentially in the game of, I don't know, vampires or sort of this big political
of
game
vampires and
going
masquerades.
On. Yeah.
Either you suck or you die.
Hi-oh. But he just drops you in and he's like, hey, go see this dude and take care of stuff for me. And there's this sort of looming thing in the background they refer to as Gehenna, which I don't remember exactly where it comes into the story, but essentially it's the vampire doomsday prophecy about the end times. And there is this artifact that's discovered. It's a giant sarcophagus that they believe contains one of the early vampires. Essentially, the farther up the top you get towards the original vampire, which in vampire lore is Cain, from the Bible is in Cain and Abel. Cain is the first vampire. The closer you get to him, the more powerful vampires become. So they believe that there's this incredibly powerful vampire that's locked away in this sarcophagus, and opening the sarcophagus and waking the vampire starts the end of the world. And there's some people who believe that, and some people who think it's bullshit, and LaCroix thinks that it's bullshit, and he just wants to get it because it's an artifact, and he wants whatever valuable secrets it might contain it as an artifact. And the main thread of the game takes you on this winding quest through multiple sections of LA to find that sarcophagus and bring it back to him. And in doing so, you interact with the world at large, and doing the side quest reveals a ton of lore about the game, a lot of very interesting things that you can dive into, plus obviously experience to level up your character. And I found the story and the lore and the amount of exploration to be incredible. If you don't like vampires, if you don't care about this stuff, this genre, I guess, of stories, unless you're really big into just being a lore nerd, there's not a lot here on offer, because it all is occult related. It all is very gothic related. There's not a lot of like Bram Stoker's Dracula type vampiric stuff in here. They actually make fun of that. There's one section in the game where that you get not captured by vampire hunters, but in order to complete a quest, you have to actually go and basically submit yourself to testing to some vampire hunters, and they run you through a bunch of classical stuff. Like there's a guy with a cross, and he's like holding the cross to you, and it's like, oh, it doesn't appear to be doing anything, and then you like just eat the guy with the cross. They try like silver bullets and things like that. They try exposing you to UV radiation and just all kinds of like garlic, things like that. Laser beams kill you. That's a thing. You can get killed by the laser beams. But so they make fun of that stuff throughout, and make fun of the idea of vampire hunters and a wooden stake through the heart being what kills them.
Yeah, they said that it will paralyze you.
Yeah, it will paralyze you, but it won't kill you. So they do a lot of clever stuff like that. The game doesn't take itself too seriously. It certainly has some very serious moments in it and asks the player some very important questions that it doesn't judge you for whatever answer you take. There's no morality or system or anything. Basically, just you lose humanity for killing innocents, but that's not a moral system. It's just like sort of you're becoming savage, which can bring out that the beast inside, which can have its own positive or negative consequences. But the game will allow you to kill as many people as you want. If you want to play that way, go for it. So it doesn't judge you for that. And it presents you with different scenarios where you can, interact with people in different ways. Do you free someone from slavery, or do you leave them because it's beneficial to you?
Or an early one, do you save someone that's dying by giving them some of your blood to enthrall them?
Yes, so that's interesting. So you can make her your ghoul. Her name's Heather. And depending on how you play that out, you can save her life and then just be like, no, it was a fever dream, you were dying. You don't know what you're talking about. If you continually reinforce that, she'll go away and just think like, oh, I guess I was dying, and go about her life. But if you allow her to come in to your life and become your thrall, she comes and lives at your apartment with you. She takes out a bunch of student loan money and then gives it to you and drops out of school. You can tell her basically to change the way that she dresses and acts. At one point, if you keep her enthralled to you, which I did, so this is how I found this out. Like, I didn't go look it up. I did this. Mm-hmm. She goes and she captures a dude off of the street and brings him to your apartment and ties him up in the bathroom. And you can choose what to do with him. Like, you can keep him there to feed on, and he will, regenerate his health and blood and stuff, so you can come back and feed on him. Or you can just outright kill him with no consequences. You can release him. Although if you release him, he's like, fuck you, I'm going to go tell the cops. So
yeah, I kept do that.
Him, yeah, I kept him tied up for a while, and then eventually I just killed him. But things like that, like how do you play it out? And there's consequences to those things. But you can tell her to dress up like a goth. You can tell her to dress up all slutty, or she can dress normal, like little things like that. You can have multiple conversations with her, and you can choose to reveal how much truth, about your vampirism and the world at large, and you can have different consequences for that. So I like things like that. There's a lot of freedom in this game to approach big subjects like that.
Yeah, I did like those moments, but like I said, because I just couldn't get far in it, I just never got to see them. And that's what I was talking about, where I see, glimmers of light of something, that I would like a hell of a lot more. It's just, I could not suffer through it to get to it.
Yeah. But what really sucks, and I've already mentioned this, the wedge effect. The farther the game goes on, at least in terms of the choices that you get to make for gameplay, start to drop out. And the game really focuses on combat towards the end. And there's still interesting story stuff there, but it becomes much more linear, giving you less choices, less ways to work through or around problems. And the game is starting to lose some of its luster as I get towards the end. I want to finish it. I want to know how the story ends. I want to know, is Gehenna real or not? Is there, actually like a super powerful vampire in the sarcophagus? how do these different factions intertwine with each other, because there's at least 3 factions that I'm pretty sure you can choose to side with. And I've forgotten one of the guy's name, but essentially, so there's LeCroix, and this sort of, vampire royalty sort of deal going on that you can choose to side with. And even though you sort of work for him the whole game, your attitude towards that service affects how other vampires look at you, because there's sort of an anarchist freedom vampire. Do you remember that guy's name? He's the guy who stands up for you and defends you at the beginning so that they don't kill you. He's like the leader of that faction. Everybody says, we don't have leaders, we're anarchists, but then everyone's like, he's basically our leader, and it's like, okay. So his faction, and he's the faction that Jack hangs out with.
Yeah, which I like Jack.
Jack is like a pirate vampire who's been around for hundreds of years. Once you get to the downtown area, he hangs out at a particular bar, and you can just go talk to him. And he gives you interesting insight throughout the game on various quests, because his attitude is basically just like, fuck it, you do what you need to survive. And he'll tell you basically anything freely. He's got a lot of dialogue and a lot of stuff you can talk to him about, which is very, very interesting. He's cool. He's one of my favorite characters. I want him to be on my side. I don't know exactly what side that's going to be, but I want him to be on my side when I get through. And then there's the Asian vampires who you run into later on in the game, and depending on how your first interaction with their sort of faction leader goes, I think we'll probably do a lot to set up some potential, faction conflict for the final chapter of the game or whatever. I might be wrong about that, but they're brought up multiple times throughout the game, and then when you get to Chinatown, their leader is there. And I had a very positive interaction with her, and I was like very honest about what I was doing, and she was like, well then you have my blessing to be here, as long as you don't go after my people. Oh, there's a reference to a tentacle monster. Me saying that reminded me. There's a quest where you find a demon hunter who is trying to avenge her master. And she doesn't like you, but she's like, well, I mean, you haven't done anything wrong that I know of, so I will let you be. And you can offer to help her. And if you help her track down the demon that she's after, once you finish up that fight, like he's a shape shifter, and he turns into a giant shark man, and you kill the shark man, and then one of the things you can say to her is, aren't you glad he wasn't a tentacle monster? And it's like, ha ha, I see what you did there. I see. That's
was she Asian?
About the... Yes, she was.
Okay.
Specifically, Japanese.
Uh-oh.
So that's one of those instances of the game not taking itself too seriously sometimes. So, I mean, the storyline is great. Like I said, where I'm at is I'm tracking down the scientist man who's supposed to be able to open the sarcophagus. And I just killed, I think, the boss for that location. And that's where I'm at. So I'm definitely pretty close to the end game. I don't know exactly how close, but I've got to be like right there. And I do, like, I want to go back and I want to finish it. I'm definitely going to finish it. I figure now's probably a good time to read Cube's thing.
Yeah, which, do you have it? Because I would have to pull it up on my phone.
Yeah, I do. So he sent in just sort of a little blurb, because through back and forth conversation, I was like, hey, do you just have a quick thing or any questions or anything you want for us? And he said, I think the best part of the outline that I put together was the ending. There was no Gehenna, so I assume that answers that question. All you are is a pawn in the game, and all you can do is survive it. You had to not open the sarcophagus or side with the Kuei-jin, which are the Japanese vampires. So seems like your final faction choices are probably pretty important. I mean, I'm gonna open the sarcophagus, Cube. I'm gonna do it. I have to know what's in the sarcophagus. So I guess that might mean that I'm fucked, but I'm definitely gonna open the sarcophagus and see where that leads me. This is a game that I don't know if I'll do more playthroughs. Like, it was really fun and really interesting.
The two factions or the two types of vampire that you're told not to play are the most interesting. It's just, they're not good for a first playthrough.
Yeah, I don't think I would want to play the Nosferatu at all.
Especially since they're more stealth-oriented in a game that focuses on combat.
Yeah, there are points where I have done stealthy things and it's been beneficial or, helpful to me. But being essentially forced to go through the whole game in stealth mode would not be fun for me. So I probably wouldn't play them at all. The Malkavians would be interesting. And just see how different it is when you... Because, one of the things that happens with the Malkavians is, there's TV and radio shows that play on various things, TVs and radios, as you go through the game. And apparently they actually talk directly to you about stuff. There's a character that you meet who... I can't remember the faction, the vampire faction, but they're basically the most magically oriented of the vampires.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're a Malkavian, apparently he interacts with you extremely differently. The sisters that own the nightclub at the start of the game are Malkavian. Although they've got a big twist. Do you care if I spoil it? I don't.
You think I care at this point? Really?
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. They're sisters, but they're two spirits. I guess you could interpret this different ways. But the way I interpret it is that they're two souls inhabiting the same body, and they're Malkavian. So, it seemed, you could read it as multiple personalities or something akin to schizophrenia. But I genuinely think that because of the the magic and vampires and stuff, I think they're two souls inhabiting the same body. Because you never see them at the same place at the same time until you finish that quest line, and it's a half and half thing. One pigtail and one nice, kept hair, part business suit, part tits hanging out.
That's interesting because the first time you encounter the second sister, she's having a big fight with her other sister.
Mm-hmm.
And you go into a room that has one entrance, and she's there alone.
Yeah, but see, there's another room and the door's closed. It's a bathroom. So I was like, where'd the other sister go? Where'd her sister go? And I was like, oh, maybe she's in the bathroom. And you can't open it. It's locked. And if you try and pick the lock, she attacks you. And she's way more powerful than you are.
Later you're able to go in the bathroom, and there's only one way in and out of there.
Right, but what I'm saying is the bathroom door was closed and locked. So I just assumed that she had gone into the bathroom. And then later on, when you come back, they're not, having a discussion or fighting or anything. So I just assumed that there was only one.
I was going for a more direct approach that there is only one sister.
Okay. See, because I was exploring and basically trying to open everything, I saw the bathroom and I was like, oh, I guess she went in the bathroom and locked herself in there for some reason. They're just fighting, she's crying or whatever. So.
Oh, did you try knocking? I gotta poop.
No, I tried picking the lock. So yeah, the Malkavian playthrough, I might go through and do a Malkavian playthrough because it would be drastically different. But other than that, probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to save before, the big decision and go back and
before you press the different colored buttons.
Yeah, before I press the different colored buttons, I'm going to go back and I'm going to replay through that just to see what the different endings are. And I don't know how different they each are. To some extent, they might be the same just because of the choices I made throughout the whole game. But I do want to see, the various ways that the game ends. And I do want to learn as much as I can about the lore. But aside from maybe doing a Malkavian playthrough just to see how different that is, because of how janky the game is, and because of the fact that I will have gotten most of the story and most of the quests and things on my first playthrough because of how thorough I was, there's not a lot of replay value there left for me. So, dear listeners, and in this case probably mostly Ghost Shark or Cube, if there's something that a completely different playstyle outside of Malkavian or Nosferatu can bring to the game, let me know, and I might be willing to do another playthrough on it. I could also always go in and modify either my save file or using console commands or whatever, just basically buff myself up. That way I can skip a whole bunch of the fluff, and get through it a little bit faster. But if there's really a lot more there with different decisions you can make on some of the, the bigger things or the ways you approach certain characters, I'd be willing to do it again for that as well. Just because of how well written I feel the game was and how much I was interested in the storyline, or in the story content itself. So, yeah, I mean, I give this game, 2 thumbs up, or maybe like 1 and a jank thumb up.
Where you start to thumb up and it just drops off.
Yeah, my thumb just falls. It's like, oh fuck, well that's not good.
No, I should probably get some duct tape for that.
Yeah.
As a gameplay guy, this is terrible. And also as someone that wasn't enthralled by the theme and the horror elements or the horror, the horror theme, and the story didn't grab me because it starts pretty slowly.
Yeah.
And the opening area, and you're probably right that they're intentionally making it a bit tougher to kind of just throw you into the deep end. But it just felt so no. I'd rather go play Dragon Commander.
That is fair. And I know there's lots of things we've probably missed, but I feel like we've touched on all of the big subjects, on all of sort of the most important bits. And with, I don't want to get too nitpicky and drag this out, because we're already at the 2-hour mark, roughly. So, yeah, I mean, listeners, if you feel like there's something really big we missed, please send in something to the show.
Yeah, VGLpodcast@gmail.com or VGLpodcast on the Twitter.
Yeah, because, I mean, I think I'll be playing it this weekend to try and finish it up. Because I do really want to finish it. I may come back and give like an extra little addenda once I complete the game. Maybe put it in games we played next week or in a couple weeks when I get through it. If there's something very major that I feel like putting in. So, I guess in that respect, when it comes to the end game stuff, you could always wait until then, or you can send something and be like, hey, when you get to the end game, send me a message to talk about whatever, But aside from that, if there's something you feel like is very important that we missed, let us know. Otherwise, I think we're done here.
Yeah.
For this. So, moving on to the next Game Club game that we're going to be doing for February, we picked Bomber Crew.
Yeah, a nice little short one that was in the Twitch Prime games for January, I believe.
Can you still go back and get it?
No.
Like, I have it, but... Okay,
no, it's already cycled.
Okay.
That's the problem, is that if we did the Game Club on time, we would have been able to say, okay, go grab it if you don't have it. But
right.
Unfortunately, the games have already cycled, and there is a couple interesting ones that would be fun for to play, but I'm not sure if they're Game Club worthy.
Let me see who has... I know Ghost has Bomber Crew. Oh, it looks like Cube has Bomber Crew, too. Hey, guys. There you go.
Escape the Moth Pit.
But, so Bomber Crew, and a neat-looking little indie game where you, manage a bomber crew on, what is that, a B-17? Maybe the bombers change, I'm not sure. Like, I've seen this game, I wanted to buy it on Steam, and then it was the giveaway for,
I think it was
Twitch
January.
Prime. And I went, okay, cool, I'll just get this here.
Yeah, I'm starting to get quite the game library over on Twitch.
Yeah, same.
And actually some really good games over there.
Yeah. So, it looks like there's different bombers, just looking at the stuff on the screen, so...
Yeah, I'm just looking at this month's games, and probably the only one that would be Game Club worthy is Dear Esther, which I'm not sure about. That would be like, play it the day before Game Club, because that's a very short game. Yeah.
But this is, a short, more mechanics-based game. Probably a few hours you could get a good enough feel for it.
Also, in other words, I'll have something more to say then.
Perhaps. But, yeah, I'm going to start playing this soon. But I don't want to start rambling again about things. So there we go, Bomber Crew for February. And the February Game Club episode is going to be on the 26th, which is 3 weeks from today of recording. So you'll have, if you listen to this podcast on the day it comes out, you'll have a little less than 3 weeks to jump in and play it if you want to participate. And we should be back on track going into April with 4 weeks. And then May, 5 weeks in May. So.
Yeah, we're probably going to have to pick something a little bit bigger for May.
But that'll be a discussion for us for another time.
Yeah, because we have to have the choosing later because someone decided to break it.
To break it?
Yeah, stuff the ballot box, remember?
Oh, right. Okie dokie.
And this is why we can't have nice things. Or like how Valve is not allowed to have nice things because it seems like people are abusing the ever-living hell out of the lunar sale. But that's not a docket item.
Nope.
But what is?
What is? So we received this article in an email from Jim, and then we are piggybacking another EA-related article to it. But EA turns in a bummer fiscal report. Quote, "We're disappointed in our underperformance," end quote.
I'm just disappointed in EA in general, so.
Who isn't these days? Disney certainly is.
Teaser for next week?
Teaser for next week.
I'm sorry. I was browsing around and I saw that and I just couldn't help but chuckle. But yeah, this is, Jim sent this to us under the headline, voting with our wallets is actually paying off, which I'm actually not sure if it's them being punished by us paying with our wallets or them just releasing worse and worse games. It's a little hard to tell, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, Battlefield 5 had a lot of problems at launch. It had many gameplay balance issues, particularly in the multiplayer portion of it, which is a big deal for a Battlefield game. It had a lot of server issues.
Yeah, but here's the thing, is that Battlefield 5, according to the article, sold 7.3 and it missed projections by 1 million. That's a hell of a lot of copies, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, 7.3 million is a lot of copies.
And that's a disappointment.
Mm-hmm. Although, I mean, okay, let's see. Let's do some quick math.
Well, that's across all platforms as well. So that's PC and consoles.
Times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's $438 million in sales. Now, obviously, they don't get all of that because of retailer cuts and things like that.
Yeah, but they don't get the Steam cut or lose the Steam cut because they have their own platform.
Right. So we could cut that in half. I think it would be somewhere between 50% and this. This number is the money that they would have made. So roughly, that's $220 million dollars that they would have made off of sales of the game.
Yeah, and they're also saying that due to a lack of update on the new mobile game, Command & Conquer Rivals, wait for Jared to twitch, I
just rolled my eyes and shook my head.
EA cited delayed mobile games and changed to a Madden mobile appeal that failed to drive monetization. The company's net bookings on mobile-only products dropped in quarter three 2019 to 142 million compared to 183 million in the same quarter of the fiscal year 2018. That's why it kind of threw me. I was like, quarter three, the fiscal year. So that makes more sense. Which the business world, you can see why I got tripped there for a moment.
Yeah. So
yeah, they lost 40 million on mobile as well, which, gee, I wonder if it's them pissing off the fan base of a certain well-known RTS title.
All of their mobile games are shitty. All of them. Except for maybe Titanfall. EA would be behind Titanfall. The Titanfall mobile game at least was pretty good. I don't know how it's doing now because it's been a couple of years. At least a year, maybe 2 years.
It looks like the only thing that's making projections is their FIFA games. Or their sports games in general. I
mean, that makes sense. The audiences for that, despite the fact that we, downplay them all the time, are huge. Especially
that's the thing,
FIFA.
is that the sports genre is like this silent player base that is just, for the most part, cut off from mainstream gaming. Because it's a lot of guys that just play Madden year after year, or just play a handful of the sports games and don't even interact with the broader community or even care that there's other games.
Yeah.
I hate to use the stereotype of the dude bro player, but it's a stereotype for a reason. Those guys exist.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But it does look like they're trying to do another Plants vs. Zombies shooter. So, hey, they get another one to screw up, right?
Yay.
A new game in the Need for Speed series. And
yay.
The Respawn developed Star Wars game Jedi Fallen Order. So that's supposedly coming out in this fiscal year.
I don't believe them. They've canceled so many Star Wars games.
They weren't even able to say anything beyond the title the last time at E3, weren't they? That was at E3, right?
Yeah, it was a tease with the title, and that was it.
Yeah, it was and it was like he was making it up on the spot. It was like, he glances over the law at the lawyer. It's like, wait, when did we actually get the copyright on?
Do you like the double take, or like have like a chart? It's on the left side, one set of Star Wars words, and on the right side, and the other one.
No, it's not even that. He's like, it's Jedi, and he glances over the lawyer, and God nods. And the lawyer's continuing to nod. But yeah, it just seems like they're being punished for producing shitty games, and people are starting to wise up to it, and they're losing the brand loyalty, which, considering this is EA with some of the largest IPs out there, I think that's fair to say right now.
Yeah.
They're losing brand loyalty out of their shitty practices. I mean, technically this is voting with our wallet, but not against them being utter douchebags. It's them, making bad games, and they're finally getting punished for it. But EA is learning the wrong lessons from this, because they say that not having a Battle Royale mode hurt Battlefield 5 sales. Yes, likely technically true, but that's not the Battlefield 5's only problem.
Yeah, that's not the main issue.
Yeah, which
there are plenty of non-Battle Royale games doing just fine, cranking along.
Which EA released, what was it, today? A new Battle Royale game by Respawn?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, it's all over Twitch right now. Because, they have all the streamers playing it. Yeah, it's Apex Legends. It has 2.5 times the player viewer count as Fortnite right now on Twitch.
Man.
It has over 250,000 viewers on Twitch as I'm talking right now. And
That's a big deal.
And Fortnite is sitting at 100,000. I mean, Fortnite's down. That should tell you something, right?
Yeah.
And supposedly it's actually
huge.
supposed to be a pretty decent Battle Royale game. I haven't looked too much into it because I'm not, Battle Royale that attracts way too many kids. It's sort of like my lawn,
Yeah.
But supposedly they have an interesting thing where there's a respawn mechanic in it. You go in as teams. So, iterating on the formula. And, maybe that's what EA was wanting to do with Battlefield 5, but, they just utterly failed at it because, Battlefield 5 kind of sucked. Trying to iterate a little bit, but they dialed the wrong way. And they were like, it didn't have Battle Royale. That's the reason. Because they looked at the latest Call of Duty game that was selling like gangbusters on the Battle Royale mode. Because if you didn't like Fortnite at the release of the latest Call of Duty, which I'm blanking on the name of because Call of Duty has like the weirdest naming convention ever.
Wasn't it Black Ops 4 that was the most recent Call of Duty? Or was it Call of Duty World War II?
I don't know. I think it's the Black Ops one. Because of the blackout mode.
Yeah, it's Black Ops 4.
Yeah, you can see why I get confused if I don't follow Call of Duty, right?
Yeah, no, that's fair. There's
because it goes back and forth. Yeah, it goes back and forth between 3 or 4 different developers on a cycle.
Yeah.
But they were looking at that most likely and seeing Call of Duty selling like gangbusters. And at one time, that was the highest viewed game on Twitch, the Blackout mode. And if you didn't like Fortnite, that was the best produced Battle Royale game out there. I'm not sure if it still is, or, if, the balance has been mucked up, or people just figured out, maybe the new, the honeymoon phase is worn off and they're seeing it for something different now. Because I didn't see it hot up on Twitch. At least when I glanced over there. I could glance again real quick. I'm not seeing it in the top. Okay, there it is. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's outside the top 10. Let's put it that way. And that's it's not necessarily the Battle Royale mode. That's just Call of Duty Black Ops 4.
Right.
So they're seeing that bump, and they saw everybody playing the Battle Royale mode for a time. And Battle Royale is such a weird thing right now, where it has the nomadic gamer base that the survival game genre had. I'm not sure if it still does, where if you release a new Battle Royale mode, everybody flocks to it for a time because they want to find something different, or see what's iterated, what they kept in different ideas. It's kind of the Wild West right now for that mode, isn't it? And I hesitate to call it a genre because it's a sub mode. It's just a lot of games choose to make it the only mode in the game. It's just such a weird thing for them to latch onto not having Battle Royale as the main thing, and not learning the other lessons from Battlefield 5, or at least admitting to them, because that's the other thing.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me that they don't admit to it. Like, I mean, I wish they would. I would respect them a little bit. I almost said a little bit more, but that would be a lie. I would respect them a little bit if they
I have to respect their ability to fuck up.
Do what? Say that again?
I have to respect their ability to fuck up. I mean, they have a franchise in Star Wars that literally prints money, and they produced three games. Well, it depends on how you view mobile. I'm not sure if they produced that mobile games in-house, but they've only produced a handful of games in 5-6 years. They've canceled more Star Wars games than they produced.
They might have canceled more Star Wars games that were produced in the previous same amount of time. I don't know that for sure, but it certainly feels that way.
But yeah, I mean, they literally dared their target audience not to buy Battlefield 5, and people called them on it. To borrow a phrase from Princess Bride, it's right after starting a land war in Asia and, going against the Sicilian when death's on the line. You do not provoke your audience.
Yeah. Good pull. Good pull.
Because PC gamers will remember that. And they will not buy the game.
They will not.
And I have a feeling that Deep Silver is going to be finding that out the hard way.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see where this goes. I don't expect them to learn the proper lesson. And I expect if this trend continues, I expect there to be cuts, which suck. But I mean, that's what EA does, is they kill studios for any reason possible.
At least it looks like Respawn's going to survive for another day if this keeps up.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking BioWare's the next one on the cutting block.
Yeah, if Anthem does not do well, BioWare is probably fucked. They are in the middle of making Dragon Age, the next Dragon Age already, which I'm not going to put it past EA to cancel that too, but if Anthem does well enough, it might buy them enough time to finish the next Dragon Age, and that would have to be a runaway success.
Yeah, it's amazing. These developers sell their soul to the devil, and then they are surprised when they end up in hell.
Very true. That's very deep.
It's just a question on what circle they end up on.
Yeah, but I don't expect EA to learn anything or behave any differently from this.
Or at least openly. That's the thing. Is that there may be some internal talks going on in EA that they don't want to admit their mistakes. But yeah,
I mean, I'm expecting budget cuts in some way, layoffs, studio closures, whatever, and a whole bunch of complaining and doubling down on
and more loot boxes in their sports games until they get outlawed.
I was gonna say more doubling down on microtransactions and loot boxes to try and come out on top that way. Yeah, they suck.
So thanks, Jim, for sending us down this rabbit hole.
That's fine.
I mean,
you just keep
part of
sending
it was
us stuff, Jimmy Jam.
part of it was on the docket anyway, but you kind of tied everything. You're like the rug; you tied the entire subject together.
Yeah, and I mean the other article we were gonna pull in, which we did, and we talked about it. EA says not having Battle Royale hurts Battlefield 5 sales. Like that was the actual article, the other article, and I mean we worked that in.
Yeah.
Perfectly. So, yeah, unless you have anything else to add at this point,
no.
I think we've covered that as far as we can. So,
no, but we do have a glue bottle to hit, don't we? Are we going to do all these topics since these are pretty short?
Say that again?
Are we going to do all these topics since they're fairly short overall?
What time is it? Yeah, it's just coming up on midnight. I like to get in bed by 1 o'clock, but I mean we should have enough time to wrap up these two, and we'll just skip Discovery Queue.
All right. Well, I'll save my good cue for next week then.
Sweet. So our next news topic, we're gonna beat this dead horse some more. Fallout 76
it twitched last
fans,
week. It twitched.
Yeah, are in full revolt following Bethesda's latest patch. Rage, would you like to tell the good listeners what they did this time?
It seems in the latest patch they reverted a previous patch and reintroduced a bunch of bugs, including. Making bobby pins weigh like they're made of depleted uranium again. It's just, what the hell, right?
Yeah.
And, that's not even the worst of it, all right? The worst of it is they went around to the perk system, which, for those who haven't played it, which hopefully is most of the listeners, whenever you level up, you essentially get a loot box, but thankfully they don't sell them yet. Of perk cards, and these are essentially what you would choose on level up in the previous Fallout games. Well, as you get multiples of the cards, you're able to get a more powerful version of them, and based on your stats, it dictates how many of the different cards of each type you get put on. All right. Well, they went around and nerfed a bunch of them, but they didn't offer respecs. So people are stuck with now either useless or less useful perks. And yeah, it's just so weird. It's like an industry standard whenever you do a major change to a talent. I'm going to use the World of Warcraft example for this because that's what I was most where I encountered this the most. Whenever there was a major change to a particular talent or spec, there was a blanket free respec for that class, and it was considered pretty much industry standard. I've seen that almost everywhere, but give it to Bethesda that they're able to screw up something as basic as that, right?
Yeah, obviously. Absolutely.
I mean, it's just mind-blowing, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, what the hell, Bethesda, right? I realize West Virginia is a shitty place to live, but it's not that bad.
At this point, I'm just like, shrug. That's what they do. That's all they do anymore. That's my approach to this at this point.
Yeah, let's put it this way. Okay, I was going around the article. Bobby pins originally weighed 0.1 pounds, all right? A bobby pin, all right? Now think about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fucking heavy bobby pin, all right?
Yeah. A tenth of a pound.
Yeah.
Bobby pins probably only weigh a few grams.
Well, they rebalanced the bobby pins to weigh 0.001 pound, all right?
Right.
A more realistic thing. after the patch, they reset them to 0.1 pounds again.
Good job, guys. You did it.
The players are pretty confident they went back up to a previous version. Just because of the loading screen errors, the inability to move upon login, that was a bug that was fixed. It's just... but they did add new items to the Atom store, so you can pay for new microtransactions.
Well, of course. That's the most important thing in their minds. Getting those sweet, sweet microtransactions.
Oh my god, they don't have that? I'm sorry, I'm reading through the article. I didn't read it as in depth because, it's Fallout. Another poster asked for another thing that is an industry standard for a multiplayer game. Care to guess what that is?
Industry standard for... Oh god, there's so many things.
For an MMO, specifically.
Clans? Guilds? Something like that?
No, more basic.
More basic.
Something that would be, I don't know, quality assurance.
Chat moderators?
How about public test server?
Oh.
Suddenly everything starts to make sense. I didn't realize they didn't have a public test server.
Yeah.
It all comes into focus now, doesn't it?
It certainly feels a bit clearer at this point.
Turns out, they can't even do public test servers. At least if this, if this one line is true, Oh, that's just... the fact that they're focusing on adding new things to the Atom store instead of having all hands on deck, which I realized the Atom store is likely just the artist in game or in company working on that, and they can't really do a lot. But there wasn't there a lot of broken textures as well, and some things that they could polish.
Yeah, broken textures and problems with lighting not making sense, like coming out of hills and trees and stuff. Game's got horrible pop-in.
I've seen videos of the Todd rays. Instead of the God rays, they're the Todd rays, where they shoot up out of the ground.
Yeah.
Oh, Bethesda. It's like every week there's something, and we've been skipping a lot of it.
Yeah, lots of small things, but this is a pretty big one.
Versioning. Use it. Or is it even able to do in your engine?
Probably not. Again, another zero-face situation here.
Yeah, this is why I couldn't list them as my biggest disappointment for 2018, because I had zero faith in Bethesda. The only thing I wanted to eventually do was just wander around the map and see what they did. Yeah, when they eventually get it working, right?
If they get it working.
If it's good.
Indeed. All right.
So, how about one last not good thing?
Indeed. Final news topic of the night. No, thank you, Eurogamer. I'll keep blocking your ads. Ubisoft, sorry for, quote, offensive Division 2 marketing email flaunting, quote, a real government shutdown.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would say offensive. Insensitive, maybe. In bad taste, maybe, but offensive? I think that's going a little far, in my opinion.
Yeah, I didn't think that was offensive. I thought it was kind of like what, I didn't hear about it at first, but when you showed it to me, I was, when I read through the article, I was like, huh, that's clever. I can appreciate that.
Yeah, essentially the email was, hang on, I'm trying to find it on the article. That's the retraction. Where's the actual email? Because that would be actually useful, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't think they actually have it on here. Which is irritating. Well, let's put it this way. They did it in the course of 4 hours. They retracted it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like a big, oh shit moment, and then pull it back. Issue an apology. I mean, I get how...
What's considering... It was actually Ubisoft saying that it was bad for business to be political. I forgot about that article that we talked about that ages ago, but
was... Yeah. I mean, I don't think that was ages ago. I feel like that was fairly recently.
Maybe It was in October.
Yeah, that's relatively recently, a few months ago.
Well, remember, things kind of blend together after a while for the podcast.
That's very true. That is very true.
Especially since we've had a nonstop, Fallout special since, November?
Yeah.
So, there's no delineation. It's like the VGL podcast before Fallout came out and after. But, yeah, it's kind of weird saying that the same company that's saying being political is bad for business and then makes a political joke. But I definitely see why they did it, because it got people talking about it.
It did, and there's a saying, there's no such thing as bad PR.
I mean, you take a look at some of the more outrageous ad campaigns out there, and they're in the public memory because they were outrageous. They stuck out. The one that jumped to my mind when I was thinking about it was the original Deus Ex, or it was either the original, or I shouldn't say the original, but the reboot Deus Ex, or the second. No, I think it was actually the second one, where the All Lives Matter one.
Oh yeah, I remember that from, what was it, 2017?
Yeah. Which that's forever on the internet.
Yeah.
But another good example. EA paying protesters to protest the
Dante's Inferno.
Yeah, Dante's Inferno.
And then didn't they also... No, they did the shock ad campaigns for Dead Space with, like, the moms or grandmas or whatever.
Yeah, the game your mother doesn't want you to play.
Yeah.
I mean, absolute shit ads that push us back as an industry, but they are remembered for it.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense of them wanting to kind of want to push the edge a little bit, push that line. I mean, I can definitely see why people are pissed, especially people that were working in the government and went a month without a paycheck.
Yeah.
Or pissed to get an email talking about, come see a real government shutdown. But offensive? That's a bit much. I would say bad taste. Bad taste is probably where I would put it.
Yeah, bad taste or insensitive.
Or, or this was a calculated risk. I would lean more towards them saying it's a calculated risk. And if it got bad press, well, like you said, there's no such thing as bad press. They're able to spin this by retracting the ad pretty quickly. And the fact that they retracted in 4 hours tells me that they were probably prepared for that.
Yeah. Figured it would be
especially since they said, and here, this is the what the email looked like. It was, come see what a real government shutdown looks like, and it's a graphic for the private beta running from Feb 7th to Feb 10. Everything you need to know about the private beta. And then the retraction emails. A marketing email promoting Tom Clancy's The Division 2 was sent in error today. It was a grave breakdown in the process, and we apologize for this error in the offensive subject line of the email. We recognize the very real impact of the United States government shutdown on thousands of people and did not intend to make light of the situation. The Ubisoft team. Yeah, I think they were just... I think this was a gamble on them.
Yeah, I agree with that. They decided to roll the dice and see how it would
maybe
be
that's
received.
my tinfoil hat, getting a little bit tight there. But, you don't send out a mass email like that in error. Unless you are just running a completely incompetent marketing team.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I think a lot of these companies are incompetent at, but I don't think marketing generally is one of them.
No,
I think
if
sometimes
anything,
they
that's
make
what they're best at.
Yeah.
But they're willing to push the line because they know that if they push the line too far and get in a little bit of bad taste, that, all the bloggers are going to start talking about their game. And there's it's so weird. The internet is in these different camps politically and just different cultures where if one group gets pissed off about something, that is actually a huge selling point to a lot of different groups. You know?
Yeah.
Triggering the SJWs gets the far right on your side, and vice versa. Getting the console guys pissed off may sell some copies of the PC guys if it's pissing off them in the proper way, or vice versa. It's just such a weird playing off of different groups now that it makes me a bit sad for humanity. How tribal we've gotten.
Yeah, I mean, we've always been this tribal, though.
It's just all the different tribes now have megaphones.
Yeah, the tools for expressing our tribalism are much better and easier to access to more people.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe not better, might not be the right way to say it. Much more advanced.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, so.
It's just a crazy time we live in, huh?
Yeah. I mean, we'll see, if this goes anywhere else. But I think that maybe I'm being got my tinfoil hat on too, but I bet you're right. I would bet money on the fact that you're right. They just decided to sort of roll the dice, see how it went. Pros and cons.
If it wasn't a conscious roll of the dice, it was them thinking, okay, this is pushing the line a bit, but it fits too well.
Yeah.
But I think it was a conscious roll of the dice. They knew it was a risky ad campaign, and it's easier to say, that was an error. We didn't mean it.
Yeah, makes perfect sense to me.
Well, since we're not doing Community Corner because we kind of covered it in the rest of the show, I will give out the email address and our Twitter once again. VGLpodcast@gmail.com, and our Twitter is VGLpodcast, as you may have expected at this point.
Indeed. And since we're not doing Discovery Queue because we are pretty close to time, I got to go to beddy bye.
Well, you got to go stab yourself first.
I do have to do that. It's just past midnight, but we're close enough to the end. I'll wait till after. But we are at the portion of the podcast where I go first. If you want to find my things, starting out on the YouTubes, you can do so by searching for Gaming Psychologist. If you want to follow me on Twitter, where you can see me tweet about all kinds of things. Recently, I've been tweeting a lot about tech-related stuff. Thoughts on upcoming PC builds I'd like to get in, or like to be starting, and what I'm going to do with some of that stuff. You can follow me for that, and political tweets, and Lord knows whatever comes out of my fingers when I'm tapping away. You can do so at JMA4707. If you want to be my friend on Steam, you can do so by sending a friend request to jarthur4707. I accept all of their friend requests and enjoy talking to the lovely people. Although, like we have stated a couple of times as part of our community refocus, we also would love you to head on over to our Discord. You can find a link to that in the show notes, and jump on in and participate with everybody over there.
Actually, it's to the side of the show notes.
It's to the side of the show notes.
Just search Discord whenever you're on the page. You'll find it.
Is that a tactic to try and keep bots away?
Actually, no. I probably should do some sort of like capture or something, but I'm going to probably be deploying a bot either this week or next. Because, we had a spammer problem. So if you join the Discord, you have a 5-minute timeout. So just, you sit in the crate for 5 minutes and you're good to go. Just beware of the moth pit. What can I say? I love that GIF. It's even better with sound.
What about you, buddy?
Well, did you give your Steam?
I did.
Well, then the password for this week first is Jank.
Nice. I approve.
And I think a very fitting one this week. Jank. So my YouTube channel is in the middle of a reboot. I got RimWorld going since we're not doing co-op stuff anymore. Not because we had a falling out. It's just, that's become our game night. I need to figure out what to put there. But I'm hoping to get the second series up and running this week. But I'm focusing right now on getting RimWorld up and running. Because, that's kind of, First of all, I would like to actually get out of the beta builds and get into the full game. Because usually if I'm not dead by like episode 20, then I'm going to like episode 100. Which I'm not sure if that speaks well on me or if I just make the game too easy on myself.
I'm going to say it speaks well of you.
Well, right now I'm kind of in the middle of still breaking down a prisoner. And I don't mean his will to join us. I mean, I'm kind of stealing body parts. And replacing them with prosthetics that are of lesser quality. I think in the last episode I took his liver and I put in like a liver I made it with some cloth and a bit of medicine and some string or something. It's like, yeah, this is good enough. This will filter you. I'm a terrible person. Like I say, RimWorld's like a war crime simulator.
Nice.
He's locked in with my other prisoner that I'm going to try to recruit. And I'm hoping that, seeing Rub slowly broke down for parts over the course of like 3 or 4 months will make this guy reconsider his station in life. Or I get a new person to experiment on. One of the two. I mean, hey, he has all 4 limbs right now. And I could use a couple more eyes.
It's win-win, right?
Yeah. So if you don't want to see me commit war crimes, I will eventually get back on Twitch. Twitch.tv/caffeine_rage. I'm not sure when I'm going to start that up just yet. But if you wish to know exactly when I'm going to do so, you can find me over on the Twitter, Gaming with CR. My last tweet was about the Super Bowl, or that ludicrous display last night. Well, now 2 nights ago. Because I didn't watch it. I didn't care.
Neither did I.
So, yeah, it was a ludicrous display, right? Supposedly it was a really boring game, and people are pissed about the halftime show because of something called sicko mode or something. I don't know.
I don't know.
It was all over my Twitter feed. I'm like, first of all, who? Second of all, what? And the third of all, wait, I don't care. People were pissed about SpongeBob for some reason. I don't know. I think they were supposed to play the song or something. I went to Out of the Loop and they were talking about it.
Sweet, sweet victory. I mean, I only know about that also because of Out of the Loop. My mom texted me on Sunday and was like, "Oh, the Budweiser Super Bowl commercial is really good this year." And I went, "Oh yeah, the Super Bowl's tonight."
And then you went and watched anime.
Yep.
But
that was a much better use of my team.
Of your team?
Sorry, my time. Much better use of my time.
Plus Mob Psycho 100 is really good.
Indeed.
But if you wish to tell us how good, I should give my Steam ID as well. It's Caffeine Rage, as you may expect, once again, with all the other branding, right? But if you wish to tell us some anime to watch, or games to play, or just to drop by and say hi, you can send your letters, voicemails, gaming-related topics to and I started to say Caffeine Rage again, to vglpodcast@gmail.com, or tweet them to us, vglpodcast, on the Twitter. Our Patreon helps pay for our Podbean account, patreon.com/vglpodcast for details on that, which we do have to have a business meeting to discuss that at some point in the very near future. We've been putting that off. But our website, vglpodcast.podbean.com, has our show notes, a link to the Discord, links to all our media, both on YouTube, Twitter, and, well, for me, hopefully, eventually, again, Twitch. But you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and where other good podcasts can be found. Our intro and outro music is On the Ground by Kevin McLeod. You can find his work at incompetech.com. And
as always, as his lovely music starts to roll across my voice, bye-bye now.
See ya.
Bye-bye. So yeah, tell me what Just go.
Okay, so
Talk.
you come across the Earth inhabited by sentient potatoes. Pretty normal. And somehow the entire universe is turned into this giant machine as well, because all the other planets have gotten twisted, and you get these new abilities to essentially drop, potato wedges to try to hit targets to turn it into, like I said, a pseudo shooter.
Yeah, and then you get potato towers and other things to drop on, because there's like the cluster potato.
Yeah, essentially a shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, I'm not 100% certain of what the machine is supposed to do outside of just, pad the game a little bit. Maybe it's just I didn't catch the reference because I haven't read the book.
I also haven't read the book, so I'm not sure if that was referencing something either, or if they were trying to say something about the larger mechanics of the universe, or, the world as it was.
Mm-hmm. But the ending, I think, is really interesting to this. First of all, that it has an ending, because clicker games typically don't. They typically just go on forever. But there's really two ways you can interpret it. That eventually, you and the AI gets back to, prime Earth, or, your Earth, or whatever you want to call it. But there's also the interpretation that, you're going further and further away from it. Now, I think I kind of like the second interpretation that, you can't go back. Because, there are infinite universes in the Stephen Hawking multiverse theory. That, the chances of getting back, it's so big that the infinite probability drive couldn't even figure it out.
Yeah. I also prefer the interpretation of you don't get back to the, prime universe or original universe, and instead you're, that's sort of a truncation of your adventures through the multiverse.
Yeah, especially whenever the AI says, you're terrible at this, I'm going to take over, and just constantly is sitting there, hitting the button over and over again, taking all control from you. And some of the Earths are just, or they're not even Earth, they're just completely warped. There's a square-shaped one that, it's probably the closest you're ever going to get, but no, that's not good enough.
There's the one that's like a head.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't there?
There was a potato
I haven't played
one.
This in over a year, so I'm drawing a lot of this from memory. Wasn't there a mushroom as well?
Yeah.
And
there was.
And then the soundtrack, that ending song with sort of the Technicolor dreamscape or whatever you want to call it, was lovely, just absolutely lovely. I was a big fan.
Yeah, I was surprised I liked it this much. Because, like I said,
I'm glad you did.
Clickers are usually not my thing. I'll toy around with one every so often, but I usually don't. Well, you can't even finish a clicker, but it's usually they annoy me more than anything else. And that's the problem with liking management games, is that if I go on mobile and I go to to a management game, 9 times out of 10 it's some form of clicker. If not, then it's a waiting game. Well, actually, probably not 9 times out of 10. It's probably closer to a toss-up than anything else. But the fact that they tie in enough humor into it as well, where there's not a lot there whenever you sit down and really think about it, but it's drip-fed to you enough. And the fact that it's so kind of odd and surreal, and that you're able to essentially break the game fairly quickly to the point where the clicker aspect doesn't matter, and it becomes more of a interactive narrative experience that's a little on the sluggish side, because you still have to wait on the clicker elements.
Yeah,
it's one of those games that's just, yes, technically it's a clicker, but not.
Yeah. Do you have anything else spoilery to say?
Not that I could really think of offhand. I have to say that, the cutscene, even though I did know a twist was coming, caught me completely off guard.
Yeah, I intentionally did not talk about that at all last time, because I really wanted people to go play it and experience it for themselves.
Yeah, maybe you should cut out a little bit extra of mine. See if you can piece together, a little bit non-spoilerly, but the fact that I mentioned a cutscene may be too much. I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
you'll
work on it.
I'll work on it.